It is Strictly Sports NFL Friday. Hello, friends. It's Anthony Fleury here with you once again for another edition of Strictly Sports NFL Friday. Delighted to be here as always. Delighted to have you with us as well. 13 games on the docket for this week, as well as our newest NFL Power Rankings, which will have some pretty significant shakeups, if I do say so myself, based on last week's results. I am joined, as always, by my partners in crime, Michael Fletcher and Michael Bullock. So, gentlemen, without any further ado, let's dive right in. Of course, one game already went down last night, of course. The Jacksonville Jaguars, with a victory over the Tennessee Titans, 19-13, in a very surprisingly good game, a game that we all thought was going to suck. But I'll tell you what, I mean, that game ended up being a lot better than people thought.
The only thing that sucked was the Jaguars jerseys.
I know, right? I mean, those all gold ensemble. I mean, good grief.
Yeah, it's part of that gold rush.
Gold rush, huh? Yeah. All right.
Or color rush. That's what it is that the NFL is doing, just like they did with the Bills and the Jets.
Yeah, the Christmas Bowl, as I called it, because you had the two traditional colors of Christmas. You know, Buffalo in the red and the Jets in the green. So the light Tennessee was in their ice blue ensemble, and Jacksonville in the all gold. But Jacksonville won 19-13, but lost in all of this. We all know how terrible and pathetic the AFC South is. Jacksonville is only a half game behind Indianapolis for first.
Yeah.
I'm still scratching my head. I mean, here's a team that has been, for the last few years, one of the proverbial punching bags of the NFL, you know, proverbial doormat. And now this team's only a half a game out of first. Wow.
I think
anything could happen.
Well, I was going to try to say, well, first off, let me just say, yes.
All right. I don't know what's going on with Flex there, but nonetheless, I mean, it's definitely wonderful for the people of Jacksonville, you know, to have something to be excited about. So we'll see what happens, and you never know. But like I said, 13 games on the docket. I mean, some solid matchups to say the very least. You know how we do it here. We run down the odds. We run down. Yeah, we lost Fletcher. So we'll run down the odds, who's favored, who we think is going to win. Of course, we'll let you know who's going to be calling the game in your area. So with all that, let's dive right in. So here we go. First up on the docket for this week, and we got one of our headline games of the week. The Indianapolis Colts going up against the Atlanta Falcons. This will be at the Georgia Dome in Atlanta. The game will be on CBS, and I believe it's going to be. Well, here we go. It's going to be Greg Gumbel with Trent Green and Jamie Erdahl, our old friend from Nesson. You know, he used to be the sideline reporter for the Boston Bruins. Greg Gumbel, Trent Green, Jamie Erdahl. They will be in Atlanta for this game, and the spread favoring the Atlanta Falcons. It's between 5 to 6 points, so it's a 5 to 6 point spread for the Atlanta Falcons against the Indianapolis Colts in the Georgia Dome. And as far as the series history goes, just give me a moment just give me a second while I pull that up. I want to say. Oh, actually, hang on, I got it. Wow, Indianapolis leads the all-time series. Get this, 13-2. 13-2. The Indianapolis Colts lead this all-time series. Last meeting was in 2011. That was in Indianapolis, and the Falcons won that game by a score of 31-7. Last meeting in Atlanta was in 2007. The Colts won that one 31-13. Last time the Falcons won at home against Indianapolis, well, that was in 1998, 28-21. That was the final score. Because we all know the Falcons went on to the Super Bowl that year. So, all right, now that you have all the schematics for that, let's run it down. Atlanta Falcons. I mean, Falcons were once upon a time the Falcons were a hot team. You know, they started the year undefeated, but then they've quickly gone south, and not in a good way. They've lost 3 games in a row. Well, actually, they lost 2 in a row. I mean, they started the year 5-0. They lost on the Thursday night to New Orleans, in New Orleans. Then they barely get by Tennessee. And as of now, they've lost 2 games in a row, losing at home to Tampa Bay. And then if that wasn't bad enough, they lose at San Francisco the following week. The bye week could not have come soon enough for this team. And now they have the Indianapolis Colts coming in, a Colt team that's going to be, oh, by the way, without their franchise quarterback, Andrew Luck, because Andrew Luck suffered a very bad kidney injury in that big win against the Denver Broncos a couple weeks ago. So Matt Hasselbeck will be asked to steer right here, and you know, they beat the Broncos and that win against the Broncos snapped a 3-game losing streak for the Colts. Home losses to Mr. Bullock's Patriots, as well as the New Orleans Saints, and then a tough luck loss on a Monday night against Carolina. A game that went from a dud to a 5-star classic with Shakespearean drama right before our very eyes. So, and then they had another classic with Denver, and they got the Broncos again. So both teams are coming off byes, and very tough to call here. I mean, because you remember when Hasselbeck has played before. I mean, Andrew Luck had an injury concern earlier in the year, and Matt Hasselbeck filled in admirably, and he did very well. Can Hasselbeck bring that magic back again? We'll see. I think he'll have a solid enough game. I can see that. I can see him having a solid game, and the running game, Frank Gore. I think he'll do some things, and the receiving core, that outstanding receiving core. You know, T.Y. Hilton, Andre Johnson, and Dante Moncrief, and Kobe Fleener, and Dwayne Allen, and all them. I'm expecting some big things from those young men. And then, of course, on the Falcons side, you know Matty Ice is going to have a big game. I can sense that. I mean, he's due for a big game. I think he's going to get it here. And the running game, I mean, Devontae Freeman, I mean, you know, he was having some big games earlier this year, but he's cooled off since. But I think he's going to bust out. And then they're equally good receiving core, you know, Julio Jones, Roddy White, and out of nowhere, this new stud in Leonard Hankerson. So it's going to be very tough. I mean, this is very tough to call. But with this game being in the Georgia Dome, and considering that Matt Hasselbeck, I don't think Matt Hasselbeck is as good as he once was. So no disrespect to Matt Hasselbeck, of course. You know, he had all those great years in Seattle, including taking the Seahawks guiding the Seahawks to Super Bowl 40 a decade ago. So with all that said, I'm going to go with the Atlanta Falcons in this game. I think they'll win this one in the Georgia Dome. I think they'll finally stop the bleeding. I mean, they've been needing to stop the bleeding. I mean, they've lost 2 in a row and 3 of their last 4 after that red-hot start. So I think they're due for a win here. So I'm going with the Atlanta Falcons in this one. I say final score will be 28-21. The Atlanta Falcons knock off the Indianapolis Colts, get back on the winning track, and put the Colts in a first-place tie with the Jacksonville Jaguars in the AFC South. Did I really just say that? Yes, I did.
Yes,
Michael Bullock, how do you follow that?
I don't know how the heck do you follow that, but yeah, hello friends. This is Mike Bullock here for another edition of Strictly Sports NFL Saturday. Delighted to be here as always.
You mean NFL Friday, Bullock?
NFL Friday, yeah. I'm still trying to get used to it, so yeah. But yeah, both teams coming off byes. I mean, yeah, the Colts with what they did beating Denver 2 weeks ago. But now, of course, they're going to be without Andrew Luck for the next 2 to 6 weeks with that lacerated kidney and partially torn abdomen muscle. And yep, now it's going to be Matt Hasselbeck's turn to be their starting quarterback for the foreseeable future. And he won a couple starts when he replaced Andrew Luck, and yeah, they got a new offensive coordinator. Of course, after the Colts replaced, of course, it's Rob Chudzinski who is now the offensive coordinator instead of Pep Hamilton. So, yeah, we'll see how that move goes. And like you said, the Atlanta Falcons were off to a undefeated start and then haven't played well lately. So, but they are at home, and I think Atlanta will bounce back in a big way. I'm going to say Atlanta wins this one with a final score of um, 31 to 14 is going to be my final score. Matty Ryan's going to have a solid game. Devontae Freeman, I think he'll have a solid game, not just running, but also in the passing game. We'll also see Julio Jones in there make some plays, and yeah, so basically, give me the Falcons to win this one, and yes, it would drop the Colts into a first place tie with the Jaguars. I mean, did I just really say that? Yes, I did. I still even can't believe it. So, Fletcher, I give it to you. How do you follow that?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Can you guys hear me clearly now? Am
Yeah,
I
I can
good?
hear you.
All right, because I know there was some issues with my audio. I guess I was snooping around with the new Google Plus site and whatnot, and it kind of, I don't know, it was acting up. I don't know if it was my mic, if I had a mic issue or whatnot, but okay, guys. So glad that you guys can hear me and we can go to work. Like you guys were saying, for when it came to the breakdown of both teams, yeah, the last time these two teams faced off, you got to go back to November 6, 2011. Atlanta won that game 31-7, and that was an easy victory for the Falcons. And now, you know, if you look at it offensively, it's remarkable what this team has done. They average about 402 yards per game. Matty Ice has been averaging 288 yards, which is fifth best in the National Football League. The running game, not really that great. They're only 15th in the league. They average about 114 yards. They score about 25 points per game, 25.8, which is eighth best in the NFL, and their third down conversion is at 45%, which is fifth best in the NFL. Then when we talk about Atlanta's defense, they're ranked 13th. They are ranked 13th in total yardage, 19th in total in passing yards, which means Matt Hasselbeck might be able to get throw it in the air. They might be able to get some yards. They might be able to get some yards on that. But here's the one Achilles heel: the running game, or the run allowed. Atlanta only gives up about 89 yards per game. Third best in the National Football League. They only surrender about 21 points per game, which is 13th best, and their total third down conversions, or they actually forced fourth downs 40% of the time. 40.4% of the time, they actually are able to get the team into fourth down situations. So, I mean, that's not bad at all. And then they're 3-1 at home, which is really good. So they're pretty dominant at home. And Anthony, you said it. They are between five. At one point, it dipped to six. 6. Now it's back to 5. So they're between 5 and 6 points. And let's be realistic. They really need to bounce back, because in the last 5 matches, the Indianapolis Colts are 3-2 against the Atlanta Falcons. But remember, the 3 times that they faced them, the 3 times that the Indianapolis Colts faced the Atlanta Falcons, they had Peyton Manning as their quarterback. not Andrew Luck. This is actually the first. This will actually be the first time Andrew Luck will get his chance to see this Atlanta Falcon defense. Well, I should say Matt Hasselbeck gets a chance to see the Atlanta Falcon defense. Keys to the game: Matty Ice, 2,700 2 yards, 12 touchdowns, 7 INTs. On Devontae Freeman, what a pickup for this guy. He's got almost 1,000 yards already. And of course, Julio Jones, he already has 1,000 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns for his name. Basically, that's pretty much the keys. If they get going like that, there's no way you can stop them. If anything, Anthony, you said it, the lacerated kidney. Matt Hasselbeck has been good, 2-0, has 3 touchdowns, no INTs, with a 95 QBR, which is actually really good. I mean, that's as better as anything else that you can suffer about that. But I do agree. I got to go with Atlanta with the win on this game. It's going to be a close. I don't think it's going to be as close, even though the spread has it about 5-6. I think it's going to be more like a 2-3 touchdown victory. I say somewhere around, I'll say 35-17. Atlanta beats Indianapolis. They'll go to 7-3, and Indy will drop to 4-6 when this is all said and done. This is NFL. This is how I like to do it. Finally, Mike Fletcher gets to channel his Phil Simms. First time. This is actually the first time in a long time I'm doing the NFL Friday. So I got some professor mode I need to get into tonight. So I'm gonna let it all hang out tonight. So Florio, it's all yours.
Hello, friends. Yes, because we all know Fletcher is the Phil Simms to my Jim Nance. That's all there is to say about that. So all I can say is save it for our game, Fletcher. No, I'm kidding. Bring it to all the games. That's all I can say about that. Even the ones on the other side. So, but ours in particular, that's the one I want. So that's what I'm hoping for, the most of. So, and you know which one that is. We already talked about it. So, so with all that said, let's move on to our next matchup here on NFL Friday, which Michael Bullock's going to start off on. But first, I got to give you the schematics, as always. It's going to be the St. Louis Rams going up against the Baltimore Ravens. M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore. That's where we'll be. This game is going to be on Fox. And calling the game for Fox, it'll be none other than Kenny Albert, along with Daryl Moose Johnston and Laura Oakman. They will be at M&T Bank Stadium for this game, and the spread favors the Baltimore Ravens. 2.5 to 3 points is the spread in favor of Baltimore. And the series history, the Baltimore Ravens lead the all-time series 3-2. Last meeting was in 2011. That game was in St. Louis, and the Ravens won that one rather handily, 37-7. Last meeting in Baltimore was in 2007. Ravens won that one also handily, 22-3. And the Rams have never won in Baltimore. The last time the Rams beat the Ravens was in 2003. That was in their house, the Edward Jones Dome in St. Louis. That was a 33-22 win for the Rams. So, so that's those are all the schematics for that. So, Michael Bullock, St. Louis Rams going up against the Baltimore Ravens up in Baltimore. Who are you liking this one?
Yeah, and of course, when it comes to the St. Louis Rams, of course, they have a new quarterback starting this week. Of course, it'll be Case Keenum getting the start, and he'll be replacing Nick Foles. Let's just say Nick Foles in the 37-13 Rams loss to the Chicago Bears. He went 17 of 36 for 200 yards with an interception, and let's just say he didn't really do good throwing the ball. He was overthrowing it, underthrowing it, and basically just missing receivers. So, and take a look at this. Since they acquired him from the Eagles for Sam Bradford and signed that 2-year deal, Foles has a 56.6 completion percentage, which ranks 28th and a quarterback rating of 75.9, which ranks 29. Yeah, that's not looking really good there. So Case Keenum is getting the start, and Case Keenum has a familiarity of the Baltimore Ravens, because remember, he played for the Houston Texans. Yeah, and so he knows a little bit about the Ravens and and the offensive line. And the thing about St. Louis, they have a depleted offensive line, and they're going to be without James Brown, who fractured his leg last week against Chicago. He'll also be without fellow lineman Roger Saffold with a shoulder injury, and Darrell Williams with a wrist injury. But of course, I mean, you still got the running game going really good with Todd Gurley, who's really been impressive. And then of course, when it comes to, I mean, Baltimore, of course, they lost last week to Jacksonville 22-20 in controversial fashion, because I mean, they should have won that game, but there was an officiating error that should have resulted in a false start and a 10-second runoff, and if that had happened, the game would have been over. I mean, Baltimore, I mean, in that game also, they committed a season-worst 4 turnovers, and Joe Flacco, he had 3 touchdown passes, but threw a pair of interceptions, so he's going to need to improve. And so, yeah, very interesting game here, but to me, this is a tough one to call, but I'm going to have to go with the Baltimore Ravens to win this one. It's going to be a close one. I think they're going to bounce back in a big way after that tough loss, and my final score for me is going to be, I'm going to say 28-24 is going to be the final score. I think Flacco will have a solid enough game. I mean, I would have gone with the Rams, but it's just that offensive line is so injury depleted, and you don't know what to expect from Case Keenum. I mean, I think Todd Gurley will keep this team in the game, but in the end, I got to go with the Ravens. So, Fletcher, I give it to you.
Well, you're absolutely right about one thing. Offensively, yeah, I mean, there's really nothing else to say about it. I mean, the St. Louis Rams are horrible through the air. I mean, they got the league worst 178 yards passing, 178.7, which is the worst in National Football League. Their total offense is 31st in the National Football League. Their only saving grace, like you said, has been their running game, where they average about 131 yards, which is 5th best in the NFL. But every other category, they are practically at the bottom. The only saving grace for St. Louis has been their defense. Their defense has been remarkable. I mean, when it comes to they only give up about 331 yards total, which is 5th best in the NFL. 222 yards passing, 5th best in the NFL. Their running game, they got to get a little better. They give up about 109 yards, which means if you are Justin Forsett, that might be music to your ears. That means you could run on this team. But not a good day for the receiving core. Maybe not a great day for Joe Flacco, because these Rams they only give up about 20 points per game, which is 8th best in the league. And on top of that, they actually shut you down. 3 and outs, they average about 32%. They actually shut teams down 32%. That means they are the 2nd best team in 3rd down conversions in the NFL. Meaning, when this defense gets you on third down, forget it. You ain't getting no 1st down. Chances are 3 out of basically 3 out of 10 times you're not getting a first down on the St. Louis Rams. Your chances are you're actually ending up 4 and out, 3 and outs. So that's definitely their saving grace. Um, it started out as a pick'em game. Now it's about a 2.5 to 3 point spread for the Baltimore Ravens. Even though the Ravens are not good at home, they're only 1-3 at the house. However, the saving grace is like you said. They've won 3 out of the last 5 battles. Case Keenum is making his first start after, well, basically a horrific performance. But the 2 starts that he's had last season, one of which actually came against the Baltimore Ravens. It was on December 31st, 2014, and oddly enough, he beat the Ravens on that day. So, I mean, the Ravens, yeah, they were 2-7, but a lot of their games have been 7 points or less. So, I mean, that's definitely if it's another close game, the Ravens are battle tested. I think they'll get the job done. This will only be their 3rd victory of the season, but I do think they'll get it done. Ravens win it 28-20. Anthony, it's yours.
Yeah, I don't know how I can follow the analysis, but man, oh man, Fletch is bringing it tonight. I mean, goodness, but I love it. But anyways, yeah, I mean, needless to say, this has been a hard times season for the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, if I was John Harbaugh, I would try to preach that hard times promo to them boys. That's all I can say about that, because right now they don't know what hard times are, Daddy. Let me tell you that right now. Hard times for this team is when this team was predicted by many to not only go to the Super Bowl, but win it as well. B-Flow 360. My man, he predicted the Ravens to win the Super Bowl against the Green Bay Packers. Yeah, that's not happening. No doubt. Hard times is when your franchise defensive player, your number 1 defensive player, T-Sizzle, Terrell Suggs, suffers an Achilles tendon. He's done for the year. Hard times is when one of the greatest receivers of all time, even though he's been, he had some Noggin Diva issues and Dinkelberg issues, Steve Smith Sr., he ends up getting hurt in what could be his final season. And hard times is when this team is so bad, they lose at home to the Jacksonville Jaguars for the first time since the Mark Brunell days. That's hard times. That's hard times for the Baltimore Ravens. That's all I can say about that. I mean, far and away the most disappointing team in the National Football League, bar none. I mean, there are some others, yes, but no. The Baltimore Ravens are far and away the most disappointing team in the entire NFL. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They are at home now. They're due for a win. I really do. I really do think they're due for a win. But here's the thing. The St. Louis Rams are not as bad as they once were. I mean, they've gotten better. Big time better. I mean, you see what this team can do. I mean, they have some big wins this year. And I'll tell you what. This Ram team with Nick Foles and Todd Gurley and Tavon Austin, all 3 of which I can see having some solid to big games at least. But on the other side of the coin, you got Joe Flacco. Even though this has been a very bad year for the Ravens, Flacco has put up some, his usual numbers. I mean, he's putting up his, laser rocket arm numbers, which I'm very happy about because he's on my team. He's on my fantasy team. He's my go-to quarterback right now since Andrew Luck is on the shelf. But I think he's going to have a big game, no question about that. I see Forsett having a big game running, and we'll see what happens with the receiving core and everything else. So, yeah, it's definitely a tough one to call. I agree with you guys. I mean, the only reason why I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens to win this game is because of the fact that they're at home. They're very tough to beat at home, even though, we all know Jacksonville got them. But the thing is, the Rams have never won in Baltimore. and I don't really think they're going to start now. I mean, this Raven team is just going to start playing to be a spoiler, you know? So I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to agree with you boys. I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens to win this one. I say final score will be 24-17. The Baltimore Ravens over the St. Louis Rams at M&T Bank Stadium on Sunday. So it's as simple as that. So with that said, we're just going to move on to our next game here on NFL Friday, and that's going to be the Washington Redskins going up against the one of two undefeated teams in the NFL, one of two remaining undefeated teams, the Carolina Panthers. This will be at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte. That's where we'll be for this Redskins and Panthers matchup. Just bear with me as I get the all-time series history, and I believe I've got it. All right, there it is. Okay, so all right, I got all the schematics here. Washington against Carolina. This is going to be on Fox. Tom Brenneman, Charles Davis, Tony Siragusa. They will be at Bank of America Stadium on the call. The spread favoring the Carolina Panthers, no big surprise there. 7 to 8.5 points is the spread for the Carolina Panthers. Series history favors the Washington Redskins, 7-4. However, the Carolina Panthers have won the last 3 meetings in this series. Last meeting was in 2012. That was in Washington, and the Panthers won that game. Final score of that was 21-13. Last meeting in Charlotte was in 2011. Panthers also won that one, 33-20, as well as 2009, 20-17. That was also Carolina. Those are the 3 consecutive meetings they've won. The last time the Redskins won in Carolina, in Charlotte, got to go all the way back to 1998. 1998. Redskins won that game 28-25. So those are all the schematics for that matchup. Michael Fletcher, our NFL professor, he's been in full-on professor mode tonight, and I'm expecting it to continue on here. So Washington Redskins, simple question, Fletch. Do the Redskins do the unthinkable and hand the Panthers their first loss, or are the Panthers going to stay unbeat after this week?
Panthers are probably going to stay unbeaten this week, but Washington's going to give them one hell of a run and one hell of a shot to try to knock them off the ranks of the unbeaten. But the one problem is that Washington is not a good running team. They ranked 18th in the entire league. When you go up against a Carolina Panther team that's ranked the 3rd best running attack in all of the NFL. But here's the thing. When it comes to the running backs, when you look at the running backs, there's 2 guys that you got to watch out for. Cam Newton is one. The other is Jonathan Stewart. Jonathan Stewart has found the fountain of youth. As long as he stays healthy, they are going to be good to go. So far this season, 662 yards rushing. He averages about 4 rushing yards per game. He's already got 4 touchdowns in the house. Cam Newton, who's practically the heart and soul of the team. He's got 2,037 yards passing with 15 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. But here's the thing. If you compare him against Kirk Cousins is the better quarterback, gentlemen. 2,278 yards, 14 touchdowns, 9 INTs, and his passer rating is actually 89.9 to Cam Newton's 84.8. So that actually knocks a little bit down. Of course, if you're looking for the wide receivers or who's going to be stepping up receiver-wise, it's going to be Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen has had a remarkable year so far at this point. I mean, he averages almost 15 yards per catch. He's got 45 receptions, targeted 77 times. He's dropped 2 of them to Dinkelberg. 664 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns for Greg Olsen. He's just been unbelievable, and that complements the fact that the Carolina Panthers, they got the number 3 running attack in the NFL. They scored the 3rd highest amount of points in the league at 28.3 as well. And the key that Carolina has done so good it's been their defense. Their defense is ranked top 10 in almost every major category. Total yards, they're ranked 9. Passing yards, they're ranked 10th. Their one Achilles heel, they do tend to give up a lot of rushing yards. They give up almost 100 yards per game. That might be the one saving grace for and if you're talking about the Carolina Panthers, that might be for the Washington Redskins, Alfred Morris might have a good game if he can get over 100 yards because Washington has been known to do it. However, they don't give that many points, only almost 19 points per game. And on top of that, their third down efficiency is the 8th best in the NFL. They surrender. They actually their clip, or it's almost like with the power play, the lower the number, I guess the better it is. 35.6% efficient rating when it comes to their third down conversions. They're undefeated at home. No big surprise, they're undefeated they're undefeated totally. But here's the one staggering stat that I think you guys need to know. The last time the Carolina Panthers were 9-0, they went on to the Super Bowl, gentlemen. They actually represented the NFC in Super Bowl 38. Kirk Cousins so far had the best game last week when he went 20 for 25, an 80% completion rating, 324 yards with 4 touchdowns, no INTs. Cousins became the first quarterback in NFL history at least to notch the perfect QBR, which is the 158.3 in a game in less than 20 passes, with at least 20% passes. Of course, Cam Newton had a touchdown and a rushing touchdown. That was the 30th time he did that. He is one behind the all-time record, which was held by Steve Young. Steve Young did that 31 times in his career, and he's actually getting close. And he's also the second player in NFL history to have 15 touchdown passes and 6 rushing touchdowns in a season. The other one, you got to go back to the 1950s for something like that. And all the games, 9 out of the 11 games that Washington and Carolina has played, all of the games, at least 7 of those games has been 3 points or less. 9 of the 11 has ended the game in single digits. Give me the Carolina Panthers. I think they will win this one 27-17. Anthony Florio, it is all yours.
Oh man, Fletch, you are on your game tonight, boy. I'll tell you. But nonetheless, and I thought I was the professor of this show. My goodness. But nonetheless, Carolina undefeated. 9-0. That of course that year was in 2003. Oh, by the way, that was when they went on to Super Bowl 38 against the New England Patriots. I remember like it was yesterday. Fletch and I, we watched that Super Bowl together, and boy, howdy do we have some fun with that one, boy. Let me tell you that right now. But and Fletch knows what I mean by that. But nonetheless, magical season for the Carolina Panthers. There's no doubt about this. It's obvious they're going to be very high up in the power rankings, that's for sure. They're going to be well in the top 3. Everybody knows this. But, man, magical year for this team. Cam Newton doing some great things, and Jonathan Stewart got off to a slow start. I had him on my fantasy team, and then I let him go because I wasn't really liking his body of work. But joke's been on me because ever since I let him go, he's been catching fire. And now I'm regretting letting him go. If I had kept him, who knows how things could have gone. But I do think Stewart's going to have a big game. I agree with Fletcher on that one. Carolina, they keep doing these things. How can you not be impressed with what this team's been doing lately? They keep finding ways to win. And then, of course, last week they had an easy win against the Tennessee Titans up in Nashville. Defense definitely shut down Tennessee like we all knew they would. No question about that. 20-10 winners over Tennessee. How about the Redskins, though? What a beatdown they put on the New Orleans Saints. 47 points. Just incredible what they did against New Orleans. Again, I really didn't think they had a chance of winning, but But hey, they did it. But here's the thing, though. New Orleans has a bad defense, and the defense was so bad, Rob Ryan was fired. So that's all there is to say there. But excuse me while I catch my throat here. I forgot to mention, last time we saw the Rams, they got beat down by the Bears at home last week, 37-13. And of course, I mentioned about the Ravens losing to Jacksonville, 22-20. But 47 points. I still can't get over the Redskins putting up 47 against the New Orleans Saints, doing that at home a week ago, and making that NFC East all of a sudden look pretty interesting. I mean, 47-14 beatdown of the New Orleans Saints. They did things that I honestly didn't see them doing. I mean, putting up 510 yards of offense against the Saints, forcing 2 turnovers, defense recording 2 sacks. I mean, yeah, Cousins was sacked 3 times, but that's about the only thing that went wrong for the Redskins, because they did not commit any turnovers. I mean, 510 yards and Cousins 300. I mean, Kirk Cousins had one of the most efficient games you can have. 20 out of 25, 324 yards, 4 touchdown passes, no interceptions. I think he had a perfect QBR rating because it's 158.3. I think that's the perfect rating. So, yeah. And Alfred Morris, 92 yards rushing, and Matt Jones, 131 yards receiving and a touchdown. And Jamison Crowder had a receiving touchdown as well. And Jordan Reed had 2 receiving touchdowns in that victory. So 510 yards. You really think they're going to put up 510 yards of offense against the Carolina Panthers in their house? No. No way. That defense is way too good, that Panther defense. I mean, absolutely. I mean, they are just as punishing a defense as you can have, and that's why I picked them up on my fantasy team this year. And, they've had some good games, but unfortunately it hasn't led to any long-term success, even though I finally broke the jinx last week, finally getting off the schneid and finally winning for the first time since opening day. So I was very happy about that. But all there is to say here, Washington, I think, will give them a fight. Excuse me. But at the end, though, Carolina is just too good. I say the Panthers win this one. I'll say the final score will be, I'm gonna go 24-14. The Carolina Panthers defeat the Washington Redskins, remain undefeated. So all that being said, Michael Bullock, Washington Redskins, Carolina Panthers. Do you have the Panthers staying unbeat, or do you have the Redskins doing the unthinkable and pulling off a massive upset?
Yeah, I got Carolina staying undefeated as well. I mean, they're just too good. I mean, well, of course, they're coming off of a 27-10 win against Tennessee, and I mean, there were times that looked like maybe Tennessee was going to beat Carolina, but they pulled it out in the end, and yeah, I mean, Cam Newton with what he did in that game, and he went 21-26 for 217 yards and a touchdown, and completed his first 11 passes in that game, and like you said, Jonathan Stewart has found the fountain of youth and has helped out in the running game, and yeah, what Washington did last week against the Saints was really something. Except, of course, the Saints' defense is so bad, and Kirk Cousins, I thought he had a really good game, and you also had Matt Jones, the rookie, who did really good. He basically had 187 yards from scrimmage, and tight end Jordan Reed also had a couple of touchdown passes in that game, and he's basically got 5 out of the last 3 games. So yeah, I think they could. I think they can really make it tough on the Panthers, but in the end, the Panthers are just too good. I got Carolina winning and staying undefeated. My final score: Carolina 27 and Washington 17. So nothing else to say except Florio. Let's move on to our next 1:00 game.
And it's another one of our headline games of the week, especially on our end. a game that a couple weeks ago didn't seem all that interesting, but a few weeks later, now it just got interesting. The Denver Broncos going up against the Chicago Bears, Soldier Field in Chicago. That's where this game will be. Games on CBS. Ian Eagle, Dan Fouts, Evan Washburn, they'll be on the call in Chicago. The spread favors Denver by only 1. All the spreads favor Denver by 1 except for one spread that has this as a pick'em game. Of course, the series history. The series is tied 7-7, 7 games apiece. The series is tied. Last meeting was in 2011. The game was in Denver, and the Denver Broncos won that game 13-10 in overtime. Who will ever forget it? I mean, that was the game where Tim Tebow. I mean, that was when the Denver Broncos were on the Tim Tebow train, and Chicago was up 10-0 in that game, and then Tim Tebow led them on that huge comeback, and they got the win. And of course, we all know what happened after that. Last meeting in Chicago was in 2007. The Bears won that game 37-34 in overtime. That was a 5-star classic as well. That had some Shakespearean drama in that one, very high level of it. The last time the Denver Broncos came out of Soldier Field with a victory, you got to go all the way back to 1993. And the Broncos won that game by a score of 13-3. John Elway was the quarterback back then, as everybody knows. So there's your schematics for Broncos and Bears. And I get to start this one off. So, of course, we all know the big news. Peyton Manning will not be playing this game. Brock Osweiler is going to get his first start as the quarterback of the Denver Broncos. And rightfully so, because Peyton Manning absolutely, positively stunk up the joint a week ago against the Kansas City Chiefs. 4 interceptions. That's right. He threw 4 picks. I can honestly say, I reckon that the game Peyton Manning had last week was probably the worst game he's ever had as a pro, Indianapolis or Denver. I mean, they put up 221 yards of total offense. They committed 5 turnovers. Peyton was, the Broncos, Manning and Osweiler were both combined to be sacked 5 times. The Chiefs' defense put up 5 sacks. Manning was sacked twice. Osweiler was sacked 3 times. Listen to this stat line for Peyton Manning. 5 out of 20 for 35 yards, no touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a quarterback rating of 0. 0.0. You would think you would think we'd be talking about a dart enhancement quarterback, but no, friends. That stat line: 5 of 20, 35 yards, 4 interceptions, rating of 0. Peyton Manning. That was Peyton Manning's stat line last week, folks. Wow. I don't know if Peyton Manning's ever had a worse game as a pro. I can honestly say that's the worst game Peyton Manning's ever had in all the years we've watched him. Osweiler was solid, 14 of 24, 146, TD, and a pick, rating of 72.6. But, yeah, 221 total yards of offense. They committed 5 turnovers. And Osweiler and Manning were both sacked. They were sacked for a combined 5. Osweiler 3 times, Manning twice. So, Peyton Manning stunk up the joint, like I said. I mean, he stunk up that joint. Basically, in a nutshell, Peyton Manning last week was as odoriferous as a dead man in July, folks. It is as simple as that. Oh, man. Stinking up the joint. Now he's going to have a week to... he'll be off for at least this week. Bullock and I have had, we've talked about this several times during this week. And we are hopeful. And I know Michael Fletcher is going to be hopeful too. Peyton Manning not starting this week, that's more than fine. But you got to start him next week. Because next week, they got the Patriots coming to town. And you know we want to see at least one more Brady Manning showdown. And I cannot wait to break that sucker down next week. But as for now, Osweiler getting the start. Like I said, solid outing. The running game, Ronnie Hillman and C.J. Anderson, they got to step it up. The receiving core with Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders and Owen Daniels, them boys need to step it up. And meanwhile, what's going on with the Chicago Bears? What's going on with Matt Ward's Bears? I mean, all of a sudden, this team looked like they were, it was going to be a hard time season for them, but look what they've done. They've all of a sudden caught fire. I mean, I think they've won 2 in a row, 3 in a row, somewhere in that neighborhood. I mean, 2 in a row. They go into San Diego, get a big win on a Monday night, and then they go into St. Louis and just absolutely have their way with the Rams, 37-13. Now, all of a sudden, they get the Broncos without Peyton Manning. They're not playing Peyton Manning. They're playing Brock Osweiler. Who knows? Who knows where this could go? I mean, this team put up almost 400 yards of offense against the Rams a week ago. Sure, they committed 2 turnovers, but that's okay. They still found a way to get it done. Jay Cutler was as efficient as you can get. 19 of 24, 258, 3 TDs, no picks, rating of 151. Jeremy Langford, 73 yards rushing and a touchdown, our old friend from Michigan State. Langford had himself a huge game. He had 182 all-purpose yards and 2 touchdowns, 73 rushing and 109 receiving. And how about Zach Miller? 107 yards and 2 touchdowns receiving. So I'm expecting some big things from Cutler. I'm expecting some big things from Langford, who's filled in very nicely for the injured Matt Forte. Zach Miller, finally looking like that dominant tight end that he once was when he was in Oakland. Maybe we'll see something from Alshon Jeffrey and Martellus Bennett, and if they get going, good grief. Chicago could actually be back in the thick of things in the NFC. And it's not often I do this, folks, but I'm calling for the upset here, folks. I'm going with the Chicago Bears to win this game. I don't trust Brock Osweiler as much as I can throw him. I mean, I'll tell you what, if it was Peyton Manning, I'd obviously go with Denver. But after that horrific, piss-poor performance against the Chiefs at home last week, and with the way the Bears have been playing the last couple of weeks, I have to go with the Chicago Bears. Say what you want about Jay Cutler, Nog, Diva, Dinkelberg, what have you. But if he has himself half the game he had against the Rams a week ago, how can he not go with Chicago? So behind Cutler and Langford and Miller, and God forbid if they get Bennett and Jeffrey going, this is going to be a walk in the park. So I'm going with the Chicago Bears to win this one. Final score, I'm going to go 38-21. The Chicago Bears over the Denver Broncos at Soldier Field. Michael Bullock, how do you follow that upset special? Bullock, Denver and Chicago. Okay.
He must have stepped away for a moment.
All right.
Or he probably doesn't realize that it's supposed to be his turn. But I'll take it.
Right.
Look, you pretty much made a compelling argument for why I think a lot of people are going with Chicago, and not only that, but I'm going with Chicago as well, Anthony. And it's because of the fact that yes, number one, Peyton Manning is not going. And, even though the odds makers actually does give the Denver Broncos the favorite, they are favored in the game by at least 1 point, at least on what I see. But the line's been fluctuating. It started out as a pick'em game, then Denver went up about a point and a half. Then actually during the middle of the week, actually Chicago became the favorite. It actually started fluctuating between 1, 1.5, almost to 2. Now all of a sudden it's starting to go back the other way, and the money's starting to flow back to Denver. As of now, Denver is only a 1-point favorite. So this line is fluctuating between from it being a virtual pick'em game to a Denver favor to a Chicago favor. So they have no idea how this is going to break out. Denver did win their last game, and the thing is that Denver is looking to try to rebound after losing 2 in a row and an embarrassing performance with the Kansas City Chiefs. Their 22-0 deficit through the 3 quarters, entering the fourth, was the largest deficit they ever had to deal with since that complete annihilation and total debacle they had in the Super Bowl against the Seattle Seahawks, where they were trailing 36-8 after 3 quarters. It was that bad of a performance. So, I mean, Brett, I'll say it like this. Peyton Manning last week, yes, he broke the record for the most passing yards in NFL history, and it looks like he was going for the all-time record for the most INTs in NFL history with 4 interceptions. It was beyond piss poor. It was beyond disgusting. Offensively, they can't get nothing going. They're ranked 28th overall in offense. They're 18th in passing. That was all Peyton Manning. Their running game is non-existent. They're almost they're the 29th in rushing. Points per game, they're 17th. Third down conversion, they only convert 33% of the time, which is 28%, 28th in the league. Defensively, this is what keeps Denver alive. They are number 1 in total yardage surrender, number 1 in least giving up passing yards in the league, 5th best in the league, 3rd best in point differential. They only give up 18 points per game. Third down conversion, they're 7th in the league with a 35% efficiency in getting the 3 and outs. So I mean, it is what it is. We're going to see what happens here. To me, I'm with you, Anthony, because the game is in Chicago, and if you guys remember last night, I actually put from Adult Swim. Basically, it was our boy. Actually, one of my boys, Matt Ward, commented on him, and even my boy Kenny Reitman says, pretty much says something about it too. And I was showing the love last night. I posted a special video. It was from our boy. It was our boy Carl from Future Force Spark Team, and he put his stone cold lock of the century for the week, and actually he picked the Chicago Bears to win the game. And normally when he puts it down as the stone cold lock of the week of the century, normally you could actually go with it. Pretty safe bet on this. I'm going with Chicago Bears. My final score, and I think this is going to be something like a 23-10 type game. I don't know why. Like you said, I don't believe in Brock Osweiler either. Jay Cutler might not be great. Ken Langford, I think he'll have a good game. Martellus Bennett, Alshon Jeffrey, and there's even rumors coming around that possibly Matt Forte might be back in the lineup this week. If that happens, we're looking at a Ryback squash, Anthony. With that said, Bears win. Mike Bullock, if you're here, it's yours. If not, we're going in the next game.
I guess Bullock's not back yet. So I guess we'll have to move on to our next matchup. And and Fletch will have to start it off. We'll just catch Bullock up if he should come back. Hopefully, he will be back at some point. But nonetheless, move on to our next game here on NFL Friday. And it's going to be the Oakland Raiders going up against the Detroit Lions at Ford Field in Detroit. Game will be on CBS. Calling the game for CBS will be Andrew Catalon, along with Steve Berline and Steve Tasker. They'll be in Detroit for this game. The spread, 2 spreads have the Raiders by 1. 4 other spreads has this as a pick'em game as well. And the series history, the Raiders lead the all-time series 6-5. However, the Detroit Lions have won the last 3 meetings in a row in this series. Last meeting was in 2011. That game was in Oakland, and the Lions came out of the black hole with a victory, 28-27. 2007 as well. That was also in Oakland, 36-21. Detroit won that. And also the last meeting in Detroit, which was in 2003, the Lions won that game, 23-13. And you may be asking, hey, Anthony, when was the last time the Raiders won in Detroit? Well, you got to go all the way back to 1990. That's right, 1990. Back when they were the Los Angeles Raiders. And they defeated the Detroit Lions by a score of 38-31. And back then, folks, you know where the Detroit Lions were playing. They were playing in the old Pontiac Silverdome. Of course, we all know the Pontiac Silverdome, WrestleMania 3. I mean, who will ever forget it? Here's the thing, though. Before I throw it up to you, Fletch, I mean, we all remember. I mean, like I said, Pontiac Silverdome. Everybody remembers that. But what you may not know, folks, is the following image might be very disturbing to some of you. Michael Fletcher, that's what the Pontiac Silverdome looks like today. Take a look at that, man. That is the old Pontiac Silverdome. A pile of rubbish, a pile of rubble, debris, no roof. The roof is gone. Look
The
at
roof
that.
the roof actually caved in a few years ago because of a snowstorm. So that's what
No.
happened there. And actually, they're saying they're going to tear it down. It's going to be torn down very soon. They actually said that a real estate company actually bought the land, and they're going to turn that into condominiums. They're going to make that into a mall. There's going to be a mall somewhere in that stadium. So yeah, I saw the photos. It's almost heartbreaking to see that this is what the Pontiac Silverdome was left to become after they built Ford Field.
Unbelievable. I mean, that
Yeah.
I mean, and you think of all the great memories that venue produced. I mean, WrestleMania 3. I mean, obviously WrestleMania 3. I mean, you can't help but think about WrestleMania 3 when you think about the Pontiac Silverdome. I mean, but there it is, folks. I mean, that's what's left of this once proud venue, where the body slam heard around the world took place, where Hulk Hogan body slammed Andre the Giant, and
Not only that, but there was a great playoff game in there too, where Barry Sanders broke one. I think it was like almost 80-something yards, just out of nowhere, just exploded out of the gate. The star hit the sideline, and that was it. He was gone. He has such lightning speed, and yeah, I mean, this is the last image of what the Silverdome is. And I'm glad that at least a real estate company actually bought the property, and now they'll be able to use the Silverdome in a different light instead of it just being abandoned and just being left like that.
yeah, and it definitely gets close to home for me because, as we all know,
Oh, of course.
WrestleMania 3, of course, my all-time favorite WrestleMania, because of all the history made and everything else. So that's the venue the Oakland the Raiders franchise won in the last time they won in Detroit 25 years ago. So with all that being said, now Michael Fletcher, back to the serious business at hand. The Oakland Raiders against the Detroit Lions, and Of course, the Raiders, they've had, they've actually been pretty good this year. But I think the big headline from last week was the Lions broke the jinx. They finally got the Lambo monkey off their back after 24 years.
You know what? I gotta say it, man. And this is one of those where if you betted on the Detroit Lions to beat the Green Bay Packers, you would have made a junk load of money on this one, because you went against the bookies, you went against all the prognosticators, you went up against practically everybody, and I think even the Strictly Sports crew, all of us had Green Bay winning that game, and you made all of us look like a bunch of idiots. I mean, that's how bad that win was, and you have to credit Detroit. You got to credit Matthew Stafford. He had a great game last week. You have to credit, all these other teams and everything else, and yeah. In the last 3 meetings, Detroit has won it. The closest, actually, the last meeting that they had was in 2011, and Detroit just barely escaped. It was a 28-27 game. That was the last time these two teams went at it. I mean, it was an unbelievable game. Basically, to say the very least, if you look at it, Oakland actually had they actually averaged for 367 yards, 132 yards rushing. There was one turnover where Detroit passed for 390. I think this was Matthew Stafford, 391 yards, and the rushing game was non-existent, just like it's not been non-existent right now. I mean, if you look at what Detroit's rushing has been, Detroit is practically one of the worst in actually the worst in rushing in the NFL. They only average about 66.9 yards per game. Oakland's a little better, but not by much. They average about 102 yards per game, which is 20th best. And yeah, I mean, Derek Carr, I mean, what a season he's been having. 2,396 yards, 21 touchdowns, 6 INTs, a QBR, a passer rating of 101.5. And, one of the reasons why he's been so good, the emergence of the man who I believe will be the Rookie of the Year when this is all said and done, Amari Cooper. 50 catches already, 732 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns. He averages 14 and a half yards per catch when he does. And I just believe they're just better. If Calvin Johnson does get off the schneid, he has had a couple of catches. He's had 54 catches at 170 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's trying to get back into the swing of things. But Matthew Stafford, man, you want to talk about a season to forget? 15 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. That is a career high for him. He's already, I'm going to tell you right now, Florio, he might be on pace for possibly 20 to 25 INTs when this thing is all said and done. You want to talk about woof? That's a woof in my eyes. I got the Oakland Raiders stealing one in Detroit. I think they're going to win this game. My final score, 24-21. Anthony, it's yours.
Yeah. Raiders having a great year this year. I mean, they're actually better than we all thought. I mean, just absolutely impressive what they've been doing. I mean, you got to give Jack Del Rio credit, man, because he's been doing some things. They're 4-5. They're third in the AFC West. They are, however, on a 2-game losing streak. I mean, they started the year at 4-3, and they've lost 2 in a row. I mean, we all know that 38-35 5-star shootout with Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. And then last week they get the doors blown off them by the Minnesota Vikings, 30-14. So they get the Lions coming in. So, well, actually they're going to Detroit rather. And as for the Lions did it. They finally break the Lambeau jinx. They won at Lambeau for the first time since December of 1991, back in the days of Barry Sanders and Eric Kramer and everything, and Herman Moore and Brett Perriman and of course that dynamic returner Mel Gray, and of course who could ever forget that defense with Pat Swilling and Chris Spielman leading the way. So yeah, they got the Lambeau jinx off their back. The confidence is definitely, I think the Lions got their confidence back, but it's just been a disastrous year for the Lions, and I think the Raiders will stop the bleeding here, and they'll get back to 500 here. I got the Raiders winning this one as well, behind Derek Carr and Latavius Murray, as well as Amari Cooper. You know, I wax poetic a lot about Amari Cooper during our shows during our college football shows a year ago, but on this, Cooper should have a big game, no doubt about it. I got Murray having a big game. I got Derek Carr having a big game as well. Lions will give them fits, though. I will admit that. I think the Lions will hang with them for a bit. I think Stafford will have a solid game at best, and the running game really has to start getting going. I mean, Amir Abdullah, he's got to get going, and then, of course, Calvin Johnson, Golden Tate, and that receiving core. So, and Theo Riddick as well, my old friend from Notre Dame. But there's nothing left for me to say here. I agree with Michael Fletcher on this one. I got the Oakland Raiders going into Detroit and beating the Lions for the first time in 25 years, winning in Detroit, that is. Final score for me, I will go. I'll go 30. I think it could be a high-scoring game. I really can. So I'll say 31-28. The Oakland Raiders over the Detroit Lions. Michael Bullock, are you back in yet, or do we just move on to our next matchup? I see Bullock's still out, so but don't worry. Hopefully he'll be back soon enough. Not sure what's going on with him, but so while we wait for him, we'll just move on to our next game, and I believe I'll be starting this one off. It's going to be the New York Jets going up against the Houston Texans in one of our sleeper games of the week. This game will be on CBS. Calling the game for CBS will be Kevin Harlan and Rich Gannon. They will be at NRG Stadium, the newly named NRG Stadium, formerly Reliant Stadium in Houston. And believe it or not, we're actually getting this game on our affiliate, WPRI 12 in Providence. We're going to have this game on our affiliate, so should be an interesting one with the Jets and the Texans. The spread favors the Jets by 3 across the board. 3-point favorites are the Jets. Series history, the Jets lead the all-time series 5-1. The Jets won the first 5 meetings. However, the Texans won the last meeting in 2012. The Texans went into MetLife Stadium and stole one from the Jets, 23-17. Last meeting in Houston was in 2009. I remember that very well. That was opening day. That was week 1 in 2009, and the Jets won that one 24-7. So this is only the 3rd time they'll be meeting in Houston. The other time they met in Houston, of course, was their very first meeting in 2003, which the Jets also won 1914. So there you go. Should be a great game here. I mean, of course, the Jets. I mean, what can we say about the Jets? I mean, they're second in the AFC East. Well, actually, they're third now. They're really tied for second with the Buffalo Bills. The Jets, they started the year 4-1, but since that 4-1 start, they've lost 3 of their last 4. That all started, of course, that tough loss at New England on October 25th, and then they lose at Oakland 34-20 on November 1. They barely squeaked by Jacksonville 28-23 on November 8, and then, of course, last time we saw them was back on November 12th, 8 nights ago, when they lost at home to my Buffalo Bills, much to my delight. And now they go up to Houston to take on the Texans, and of course another one of the big headlines of a week ago. I mean, even though the number one storyline from last week was the Detroit Lions getting the Lambeau monkey off their back when they went into Lambeau and beat the Packers for the first time since '91. The number 2 story of the week, far and away, no doubt about this. The Houston Texans going in to Paul Brown Stadium in Cincinnati and stealing one from the Cincinnati Bengals, handing the Bengals their first loss of the season with a 10-6 win on Monday Night Football. And I know Michael Fletcher's going to have a lot to say about that in just a moment. But the Houston Texans forcing 2 Cincinnati turnovers. They recorded 4 sacks of Andy Dalton. The quarterback play was subpar for Brian Hoyer. He had a meh game, but T.J. Yates, though, he did it to the Bengals again with a touchdown pass to DeAndre Hopkins early in the fourth quarter, which was the difference maker in that one. They contained the running game. They held Giovanni Bernard to 36 yards rushing and Jeremy Hill to 15 yards rushing. They held A.J. Green to 67 yards receiving. Marvin Jones to 44 yards receiving. I mean, the defense pretty much came to play, holding them to 256 total yards, forcing 2 turnovers, like I said, and recording 4 sacks of Andy Dalton. Whitney Mercilus with John Simon, J.J. Watt, and Christian Covington. They got the sacks of Andy Dalton, and I think the Texans were inspired. Because I remember watching, I was flipping between that game and, of course, Monday Night Raw, like I always do every Monday night. And I actually remember seeing J.J. Watt inspiring his teammates. He had his teammates all gathered around him. You know, we see this a lot. You know, they show a lot of pregame footage and whatnot, where you see certain players trying to rally their team to victory. And whatever J.J. Watt said, I think the Houston Texans were inspired by what J.J. Watt did. J.J. Watt, absolutely inspired the Houston Texans. And I think that pregame speech by J.J. Watt to his teammates, I think that was the ultimate difference maker. And I think that's the reason why the Houston Texans went into Paul Brown Stadium and stole one from the Bengals and handing the Bengals their first loss of the year. Just impressive. I give J.J. Watt all the credit in the world for that win. Can he do it again against the New York Jets? Well, that's tough because, the Jets have a great team. They got a solid team. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick, my old friend from the Buffalo Bills, he's having a great year for them. Of course, the running game with Chris Ivory. Ivory's had some big games this year. They got a 2-headed monster at wide receiver, of course, with Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. Both of those guys have had some big games for them this year. I'm expecting all of them to have a big game here against Houston. On the other side of the coin, they basically have a quarterback by committee right now with the Texans. I believe Ryan Mallett is out injured. Brian Hoyer, like I said, had a subpar game, and then T.J. Yates came in, and T.J. Yates did what he did against the Bengals 4 years before in 2011, and Fletch, you should know because you covered that game. Yates did it again. Another fourth-quarter touchdown, although this one was not with only seconds to go. It was only 33 seconds into the fourth quarter. 14:27 was remaining at that point. But nonetheless, Yates killed the Bengals again, like he did in that game in December of 2011. That game, the Texans clinched a playoff spot, their first ever in franchise history. So, very tough here. I can honestly say this is the toughest game of the week right here, honest to goodness. Well, this and another one. But I'm torn. I really am torn, honest to goodness. I really don't know who to go with. But the Jets are slight favorites. And Houston coming off of that huge win against the Bengals. Oh, this is so tough. I honestly do not know who to go with in this one. That's how tough it is. I just got to look and see who I picked in our Strictly Sports Pigskin Pick'em League on ESPN.com. All right. I'm going to take a chance, and I'm going to go with the New York Jets in this one. Would I be surprised if Houston won? Absolutely not. The only reason why I'm going with the Jets here The Jets have a solid quarterback in Ryan Fitzpatrick, while the Texans, their quarterbacking situation is a mess. I don't know if it's going to be Hoyer. I don't know if it's going to be Yates, or even if it is going to be Mallett. I really don't know. The running game needs to get going. The receiving core, DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, he's great, but I don't know if they can match wits with the Jets here. So behind Fitzpatrick, Ivory, Decker, and Marshall, and that stout defense with Revis Island and all them, I'm going to take a chance, and I'm going to go with the New York Jets to win this game. I think it's going to be a close game, and I think it's going to be on the lower scoring side of things. I'm going to say 17-14. The New York Jets defeat the Houston Texans at NRG Reliance Stadium. So simple as that. Michael Bullock, are you back in, or is he still out? I'm guessing he's still out. So Michael Fletcher, the Jets and the Texans. Your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, this is one of the toughest games of the week, and you actually were correct about that. The way that the body of work of both teams have been so far this season, yeah, you kind of think, oh, could it be one way or another? The Jets are a really good rushing team. I think you said it best. Their rushing team is a lot better than anything else that we've done. The Jets are almost near the top 10 in when it comes to the rushing game. They average about 116 yards, almost 117 yards per game, and that has to do with Chris Ivory, like you said. It could have been a lot more closer for Houston, but once Arian Foster went down with the injury, they got to rely on the passing game, and they have. They're seventh best in the NFL in the passing. But what really helps the Jets is the defense. They basically are the number 4 total defense in all of the NFL. They're the 8th against the pass, 1st against the run. They give up only 20 points per game. That's tied for 9th best in the league, and they're tied for 10th in third down efficiency at a 36.4% clip. So no, this is a really good defensive team. But in third down efficiencies, when it comes to Houston, they are the number 1 team in the NFL. They only the opposing team only has a 27% conversion rate on third downs. That is the best in the NFL for any team. So yeah, it's a tough game. It's a tough game to call, but I'm gonna go with the Jets. And actually, my final score is I believe the Jets is gonna win this, and I'm gonna say 20-17. Jets win. Anthony, let's move on.
Yeah. Move on to our next game here on NFL Friday. And here you go, Michael Fletcher. I know this is one you've been waiting for, even though it's not really all that sexy of a matchup. But I know this is definitely a vested interest game for you. The Dallas Cowboys going up against the Miami Dolphins. Sun Life Stadium in Miami, Florida. That's where we're going to be. This game's going to be on Fox. Calling the game for Fox will be Kevin Burkhardt along with John Lynch and Pam Oliver. They'll be in Miami for this matchup. The spread favors the Cowboys by only 1 to 1.5 points. One other spread has it as a pick'em game. Series history, it favors the Miami Dolphins by a count of 7-5. However, the Cowboys have won the last 2 meetings in this series. Last meeting was Thanksgiving Day, 2011. Yet another game Michael Fletcher covered during that 2011 season. You should know, Fletch. Dallas Cowboys winning that game by a score of 20-19 at Jerry World, as everybody knows. Last meeting in Miami was in 2007. The Cowboys won that game 37-20 as part of that hard times year for the Miami Dolphins. We don't dare talk about it on this show because we all know how Fletch will get if we do. And the last time, you may be wondering, when was the last time the Miami Dolphins beat the Dallas Cowboys at home? Fletch, you got to go all the way back to 1984. 28-21 was the final. And in that season, as everybody remembers, that was the big year for Dan Marino. That's when Dan Marino had that record-setting season. Duper and Clayton, everybody remembers them. And, of course, that's when they were still in the Orange Bowl. And they've never won at Sun Life against the Cowboys. The last time the Dolphins beat the Cowboys at home, Sun Life Stadium wasn't even built yet. It was Sun Life Stadium didn't open until 3 years after that. It opened back in 1987 when it was Joe Robbie Stadium, as everybody knows. So, 1984, Dolphins were 14-2. They scored over 500 points. And oh, by the way, that year, that was also the last time the Miami Dolphins went to the Super Bowl. But the Dolphins, of course, lost that Super Bowl to Joe Montana and the 15-1 San Francisco 49ers at Stanford Stadium in Palo Alto. So with all that said, the big thing is, Michael Fletcher, as I throw it to you for this Cowboys-Dolphins matchup, only fitting you started off because this is, I know, your most vested interest game right here. So I ask you, Tony Romo, is he in? Is he out? But more importantly, Cowboys and Dolphins, man. Strictly Sports Buddy Bowl. Well, actually, no longer Strictly Sports Buddy Bowl, since Derek's now boycotting the Cowboys. So, who you got, Cowboys or your Dolphins?
You know what? This is a dangerous game for both teams. Especially for Dallas, they need to stay paced within their division because their division is actually a winnable division. It's their overall record, what they've been doing, that where everything was going down. It's definitely a winnable division to say the very least. But then on top of that, for Miami, they're right now in the thick of trying to get into the playoffs. And I know, believe it or not, they are actually right there in the thick of the AFC playoff picture. Dallas right now, if you look in the NFC, they're 2-7, but the thing is that the division is so wide open because of the fact that some of the other teams are not that good. The Giants are at 5-5. They're on a bye this week. Washington at 4-5. Eagles at 4-5. So I mean, you're kind of 2 games out. 2-3 games out is basically if you can get a major victory here. You're definitely right back into the thick of it. And as far as Miami goes, yeah, if you look at it, 4-5 is the overall record, but in the wild card race, you're practically right there. You are practically 1 game behind the second, the final playoff spot, which is actually currently held by the Buffalo Bills. The Jets are there as well. So I mean, you definitely have an opportunity to make a statement, make a run, and who knows? If you beat Dallas, that gives you 5-5, and if Buffalo loses, if the Jets lose, and if some other teams does fall in line, then you're right there, right back in the mix of possibly a wild card. So yes, definitely a big game for both teams, to say the very least. And the thing is with Miami is last week, this was a tough, gritty victory that they had to get over the Philadelphia Eagles because they went down 16-0 at one point. And normally when you trail that quickly, you're thinking, oh God, there's no way you're going to recover from that. But Miami did. And how did they do it? They won it because of defense. The defense showed up in this game. Ryan Tannehill was not that great. I mean, 21 for 36, 217 yards, 2 touchdowns. He got sacked 4 times. And receiving wise, it was an okay game. There was really nothing bad. But here's the key of this game, and here's why they won this battle. Ndamukong Suh had the game of his life. He had 8 tackles. He had a sack in the game. He was a disruptor. He caused chaos. Shepard did as well. Rashad Jones had a sack, had an interception in the game as well. So, I mean, this was without a doubt the best performance by the Miami defense. They had to wake up. They had to get themselves back into this and boy did they do that and then some. They played a great game. They got back. Now they're going up against a Dallas Cowboy team that's been free falling. They've been fighting. There's been a lot of infighting. There's been a lot of problems going on, and now here they are, possibly looking at, getting an opportunity to really get their season back. Tony Romo is back. He's going to play. He's not at 100%. I don't believe he is. And because of the fact that they're in Miami, in that hot sun, where it's going to be about 80, 85 degrees, red hot, I got to go with the Miami Dolphins. I just think they're just going to do enough to win this game. Give me the Miami Dolphins. Final score is, I'm going to say 21-14. Dolphins win. Anthony, it's yours.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be this is definitely a one of those on the radar games. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, it's been hard times all season long. I mean, well, it was a promising start. They started the year 2-0. They beat the Giants on that opening Sunday night game. I mean, just amazing there. And then they went into Philadelphia and beat up on the Eagles. But that was the game when Tony Romo got hurt, and of course it was also in that Giants game where Dez Bryant was hurt as well. But Bryant came back recently, and of course a lot of the reports were saying that this could be the game where Tony Romo will be eligible to come back. So is this the game? I mean, if he comes back, then you definitely have to give somewhat of an edge to the Dallas Cowboys. And it's been a rough go for the boys this year. I mean, they've had so many issues. I mean, not just the injuries to Romo and Bryant, but all the extracurricular activities with just give me a second. Of course, the controversial situation with Greg Hardy. We all know what's going on with him. I mean, all that nonsense, and that's definitely hindered the Cowboys this year. Of course, Dez Bryant has had some noggin diva moments this year as well. So yeah, it's definitely been hard times for the Dallas Cowboys this year. I mean, 2-0. I mean, they've lost 7 in a row after that 2-0 start. So the wheels pretty much came off the minute Romo went down. So I don't trust the Cowboys as much as I can throw them. As far as the Dolphins are concerned, I mean, it's been an up and down year for Michael Fletcher and Eric Carrier's Miami Dolphins. I mean, they currently sit in the basement in the AFC East right now. They did, however, get off the schneid. They started the year 1-3, and then they won 2 in a row. Those impressive wins against Tennessee and Houston, and then they lose 2 in a row at New England and at Buffalo. But then they went into Philadelphia, and they stole one from the Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field, winning 20-19. Their first win in Philadelphia since '93, since the infamous Don Shula game when Don Shula became the all-time winningest coach in NFL history. That memorable image of him getting carried off by his players. But Dolphins were outgained 430. The defense gave up 436 yards of offense to Philly, but the defense did commit a turnover. I'll give them that. And they also recorded 4 sacks of Sam Bradford. So very impressive there. Tannehill, 2 touchdown passes, no interceptions, efficient game for him. That's all you can ask. Running game has to get going. Jay Ajayi and Lamar Miller, they really need to get going. They do have Rashard Matthews, who continues to be their best receiver. He had 93 yards. Jarvis Landry and Lamar Miller have been receiving touchdowns. I'd like to see more from them. I think they'll have solid games, no question, as will Tannehill. But the question is Romo. Will Romo go or will Romo not go? So we'll have to wait and see. But the thing is, Dallas has been awful. Miami hasn't been any better, but I am going to give the Miami Dolphins the benefit of the doubt here. I'm going to go with the Dolphins to win this game. I'm going to say Miami wins it. I'll say final here. I'll go 24-17 here. I think this could be a 24-17 victory for the Miami Dolphins against the Dallas Cowboys, and they'll win at home for the first time since 1984. So, Michael Bullock, are you back in yet, or is he still out? I guess he's still out. So, I don't know what's going on with him, but with that said, we're just going to move on. Just going to move on to our next game here on NFL Friday, and that is, well, according to my notes here, I got to make a couple of adjustments here because I'm going by my PDF file here, which is where I found my record and fact book this time around. But I'm just gonna move on to, because a couple of these games switch time slots, obviously. So I believe this is actually our last 1 o'clock game here on this schedule this week. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up against the Philadelphia Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, and this game will be on Fox. And calling the game for Fox will be the legendary Dick Stockton, along with David Deal and Christina Pink. They will be in Philadelphia for this Buccaneer-Eagle matchup. The spread favoring, I do believe it favors the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, it does. 5.5 to 6 point favorites are the Philadelphia Eagles against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the series history, just give me a moment as I pull it up here on my notes. Series history favors the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia Eagles lead the all-time series 8-5. The Eagles have won the last 3 meetings in this series in a row. Last meeting was in 2013. That was in Tampa Bay at Raymond James Stadium. The Eagles won that game by a score of 31-20. 2012, Philadelphia won that as well. That was also in Tampa Bay, 23-21. And last meeting in Philadelphia was in 2009, and it was the Philadelphia Eagles who won that one as well by a score of 33-14. The last time Tampa Bay went into Philadelphia and stole one, you got to go back to Week 1 of the 2003 season. That was on a Monday night. That was the opening Monday Night Football game of 2003, Week 1. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers defeating the Philadelphia Eagles 17-0, the first official game at Lincoln Financial Field. As you remember, in January of that year in 2003, Tampa Bay went into Philadelphia and closed out, literally closed out, the old Veterans Stadium when the Buccaneers beat the Eagles 27-10 in the NFC Championship game, going to Super Bowl 37, and of course the Bucs went on to win that Super Bowl in San Diego against the Oakland Raiders. So, yeah. It's both of these teams are, in the middle of the fold. I mean, Tampa Bay has actually been playing some. I gotta admit, Tampa Bay's been playing some good ball as of late. I gotta admit it. They've actually, they're 4-5. They sit at third in the NFC South. They picked up a huge win a week ago against the Dallas Cowboys, winning that one. They were 1-3, and then they've won 3 of their last 5 since that 1-3 start. I mean, I gotta admit, Tampa's been coming around lately, and I'm actually kind of liking their body of work right now. I mean, defense holds the Cowboys to 216 total yards, forces a turnover, and records 3 sacks of Matt Castle. Jameis Winston. Yeah, he threw a couple of interceptions, but he had a solid game nonetheless. Threw for 264 yards, and he also scored the winning touchdown, a 1-yard rushing touchdown with a minute to go to beat the Cowboys. Doug Martin in the running game needs to get going. He only had 63 yards rushing to lead that stat. Mike Evans, though, was the star. 126 yards receiving. in that one. I think he's going to have a big game. I can see Doug Martin having a solid game and Winston probably having a solid game. Philadelphia Eagles, that, like I just said a moment ago, that tough loss at home to Fletcher's Dolphins, 20-19 at the Link. They're 4-5 as well. They sit in third in the NFC East. I mean that rough and tough NFC East, and they still lost despite putting up 436 yards of total offense. But they committed a turnover. Bradford threw a pick. Bradford was also sacked 4 times by the Dolphins. And Bradford was actually, and even though Bradford had a great game, 19 of 25, 236 and a touchdown, Mark Sanchez also got some playing time. Was 14 of 23 for 156 and an interception. The running game, DeMarco Murray, 61 yards. I mean, Ryan Matthews had a rushing touchdown, but he had 18 yards. Brent Selleck, 134 yards receiving. I think he'll have a solid game. Same for Zach Ertz and Nelson Aguilar and Jordan Matthews. We'll see about Darren Sproles. I think Sproles might get into the fold here. We'll have to wait and see if he does that. Murray should have an okay game. I don't know if it's going to be Bradford. I don't know if it's going to be Sanchez, who's going to be starting for Philadelphia. But I'm going to take a chance here, and I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles to win this game. I mean, after all, they've won 3 in a row in this series, so I think they'll make it 4. So I say the Eagles win this one. I say final score. We'll go. I'll go 20. I'll go 27-20. The Philadelphia Eagles over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I'm going to take a wild guess and say Michael Bullock's probably still out. So with that said, Michael Fletcher, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Philadelphia Eagles, at the Link. Who you got?
Well, first off, I just want to clarify with you that is actually Mark Sanchez who is starting on Sunday. He's actually going to be playing the game. As far as you go with everything that's going in, I agree with you. I'm going to go and I'm going to say yes. I like my prediction is I do have the Philadelphia Eagles winning the game as well. Their defense is has been good, but what has really been more explosive is their high-powered offense. I got to go with them, so I'm going to say yes to that. There's really nothing more to say, so I'm going to go with the Eagles. I'm not going to waste too much time. Let's get into the 4 o'clock games, Anthony. It's all yours.
Yeah, and you'll be starting it off on those 4 o'clock games, Fletch. This game was originally scheduled to be the Sunday Night Football game for this week, but it has been since bumped. Flex scheduling. This is the first time flex scheduling has reared its head here. I did forget to mention that this is the last bye week for all the teams, by the way. The Cleveland Browns, the New Orleans Saints, the New York Giants, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are on bye for this week, and then after that, no more bye week. I mean, it's all downhill from here. So, but anyway, this game was originally scheduled as Sunday night, but has now been bumped to the late spot on CBS. The Kansas City Chiefs going up against the San Diego Chargers, Qualcomm Stadium in San Diego. That's where we're going to be for this one. And just bear with me as I get schematics for this one. I believe this is their first meeting this year. I don't recall them meeting yet this year. At least I don't think. I don't think they met in Arrowhead yet, as far as I know.
Yes, this is their first meeting this year.
It is. I thought so. All right. Games on CBS. Spiro Dedes and Solomon Wilcots. They'll be at Qualcomm Stadium for this Chiefs-Chargers matchup. And the spread.
KC by 3.
Yep, that's what I have. Kansas City Chiefs, 3-point favorites across the board. Series history. The series is tied. 54-54 with a tie. The one tie was in 1965. That was in San Diego, 10-all. Let's see. Last year, the Chiefs swept both meetings, snapping a four-game losing streak to the Chargers because the Chargers swept in 2012 and 13. Last year, though, it was the Chiefs who came away with it. The Chiefs winning in San Diego. Chiefs won in San Diego 23-20 last year. First time they did that since 2007 when they won in San Diego. Before last time they had won in San Diego, 30-16. It was a 23-20 win in San Diego. Last year, we'll get into Kansas City when they go to Kansas City the next time they meet. So, Michael Fletcher, Kansas City Chiefs against the San Diego Chargers. Chiefs have been up and down. Chargers, they've been disappointing as well.
Yeah, but the problem is you can't really blame San Diego for some of the bad luck. I mean, there's been some games where they probably should have won that they lost, heartbreaking fashion, I think is the way we would call it. Because I mean, when you talk about when you talk about San Diego, I mean they got the #1 passing attack in all of the NFL. They normally average about 328 yards per game. Their total offense is the 4th highest in the NFL. You know, third down conversions, 4th highest in the NFL. The one Achilles heel that they have, or the one big problem that they're dealing with, is no running game. They're 30th in the league when it comes to that, and defensively, they're actually not that great defensively. Actually, Kansas City's better defensively than San Diego. So that's why they're actually pretty rough. You know, when they have their rough schedule at all, but they do have 2 of the wins. The 2 wins that they've had all year have been at home. So I mean, it's definitely a chance that they could win the game. But Alex Smith has been, you know, he is the level of consistency. He's not that flashy or amazing. He does have 10 touchdowns to 3 INTs during the season, but only 2,100 yards passing. And like I said, a lot of their passing attack is once again going through more of the running backs and tight ends. Their wide receivers are pretty non-existent with San Diego. The problem with San Diego is they're just dealing with injuries. If it wasn't for injuries, I think San Diego would be a lot more better off and a lot more dangerous. But I gotta go with San Diego. I don't know. I just feel like this is a game that they can win. So give me the San Diego Chargers. I think they're gonna win this game. My score is 24-21. And with that said, Anthony, it's yours.
Yeah, I mean, another team that's been rattled with hard times. I mean, the San Diego Chargers. I mean, what can you say? I mean, 2-7, and they sit in last in the AFC West. They've lost 5 in a row. Their last win was a come-from-behind effort against the Cleveland Browns back on October 4th in Week 4, 30-27. Since then, they've lost 5 in a row. Tough luck loss at home on a Monday night against Pittsburgh. Tough luck loss at Green Bay. Tough luck loss against Oakland at home. Tough luck loss at Baltimore. And then an even tougher luck loss against Chicago on Monday night, November 9th. So they're coming off a bye. So we'll see if this is where the Chargers can get going here. Phillip Rivers really needs to get going. And, yeah, I mean, Phillip Rivers and, of course, the running game. I mean, that running game really has to get it going. I mean, Melvin Gordon and them really got to get it going. I mean, 77 yards rushing against the Bears. Oh, by the way, 77 total yards. I mean, Rivers has been the bright spot. I will admit it. Rivers has had some great games. 280 yards and a touchdown against the Bears. I mean, the running game, you know, Danny Woodhead, Melvin Gordon, Donald Brown. Woodhead and Gordon. Woodhead had 33 yards, Gordon 31, Brown had 13. I mean, they had 77 yards total, like I said. It's the running game that's killing. The running game really needs to step it up and get going. Danny Woodhead, a receiving touchdown, 78 yards, that's good. Antonio Gates, 69 yards. Stevie Johnson, my old friend from Buffalo, 68 yards. I'm expecting Woodhead and Gates and Johnson to have solid games receiving.
the running game, that's the one that really concerns me. They really need to get going here. They need to wake up. I mean, they're one of the worst running teams I've seen. Rivers, I think, will have a big game, though. I can see Rivers having a decent game, as always. So that's how I feel about San Diego. Kansas City, 4-5, second in the AFC West. They've won 3 in a row. I mean, they won on opening day against Houston, and then they lost 5 in a row. But since then, they've won 3 games in a row. They won at home against Pittsburgh on October 25, 23-13. Absolutely destroyed the Detroit Lions in London at Wembley Stadium, 45-10 on November 1. They had a bye week and then, of course, went into Denver and absolutely manhandled the Denver Broncos, 29-13. And they just absolutely, positively manhandled, and I mean manhandled, Peyton Manning. So I can see why Fletch would go with San Diego. I can understand why he would go with them, but with all due respect, Michael Fletcher, I'm sorry. The San Diego Chargers, another team that I honestly cannot trust as far as I can throw them right now. Until they prove it to me otherwise, I have to respectfully disagree with you on this one, buddy. I got to go with the Kansas City Chiefs in this one, behind Alex Smith, and I know they have that running back by committee, Sharkandrick West and Niall Davis, because as we all know, Jamal Charles, they lost Jamal Charles for the season due to a devastating injury he suffered. But I think Alex Smith's going to have a solid game, an efficient game. I can see him definitely having one of those. He always does. Sharkandrick West, I think he's going to have a big game on the running game. West was pretty much the difference maker in that offensively. He was the offensive hero for KC against Denver. I mean, that game was all about the defense, as everybody knows. The 5 turnovers and the 5 sacks, the 5 combined sacks of Osweiler and Manning. West had 161 all-purpose yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 69 rushing and 92 receiving, and a touchdown on both ends of the ball. So I'm expecting Sharkandrick West to have another big game. And Travis Kelce, Jeremy Maclin, I think they're going to have big games as well. Smith will have a solid and efficient game. I think the defense is going to frustrate and fluster Phillip Rivers just like they did with Peyton Manning. So I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs to make it 4 in a row and get back into the thick of the race in the AFC. So my final score is Kansas City winning. I say KC wins it by a final score of 31-17. And I got to ask the question, Michael Bullock, where in the world have you been, brother?
Well, let's just say, someone was a little, someone dozed off a little bit. So yeah, it was my doing, but
yeah, I don't blame you. You've had a long week, man. I know.
Yeah,
but you got some big catching up to do here, buddy. So we're gonna catch you up like we always do. Let me see if I can
I apologize for
get
that
the schedule here. Where did you leave off, Bullock?
I think I actually did.
Was it Washington, Carolina?
Yeah.
You did Indianapolis and Atlanta. I know that.
Yeah.
And I think you also did St. Louis and Baltimore, right?
Yeah.
And what's that?
Yeah, I did St.
Yeah,
Louis
you
and
did. All
Baltimore.
right. What about Washington and Carolina?
I did that.
Okay, you did that. Did you do Denver and Chicago?
That I did not do.
Oh yeah, I think that's where you leave off. So all right, you don't have much to catch up on then. You have a few games though. Denver Broncos against the Chicago Bears. Who you got?
Yeah. I actually got Denver winning, but I think it's going to be a close one.
All right.
I'm just going to breeze right through it.
Okay, no problem. Oakland Raiders against the Detroit Lions.
I got the Oakland Raiders winning this one.
New York Jets against the Houston Texans.
I got the New York Jets winning this one.
Dallas Cowboys, Miami Dolphins.
Got the folks from Miami, the Dolphins, winning this one.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Philadelphia Eagles.
Wow, this one here it's a tough one, but I gotta go with the Philadelphia Eagles to win this one.
And the last game we just talked about, the Kansas City Chiefs against the San Diego Chargers.
Yeah, I got the Kansas City Chiefs winning this one as well. So you just described it, so I say we just move on to the next match.
And I believe for all intents and purposes, I think we should have you lead off on our next match. Did Fletch? Yeah, Fletch led off on the last one, I believe. So I'll take this next one, and it's only fitting because it's going to be the America's Game of the Week on Fox, the big one in the NFC North, the Green Bay Packers against the Minnesota Vikings, TCF Bank Stadium on the campus of the University of Minnesota. This was originally scheduled to be a 1 o'clock game, but the flex scheduling moved this from 1 o'clock to 4:25. So, and if it's America's Game of the Week, you know who's going to be there for it. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Aaron Andrews, they will be in Minnesota for this huge game in the NFC North. The 6-3 Packers against the 7-2, yes, I said it, 7-2 Minnesota Vikings. The spreads favor the Minnesota Vikings only by 1. 4 spreads have the Vikings by 1. 2 other spreads has this as a pick'em game, and rightfully so. And from what I am hearing, I believe I just got some. I believe I just got a word. I just got a word about the weather for this game. I heard the weather is going to be absolutely brutal in Minnesota for this game, from what I know. I heard we're going to have snow, and we're going to have some pretty gusty winds, as far as I'm hearing. So I'm going to need to look into that in just a matter of moments. But but all I know is this is the big game in the NFC North. I mean, this is going to be a knockdown, drag-out affair. I mean, who'd have thought? Who would have thought that a Packer-Viking game was actually going to mean something? I mean, the last couple of years it hasn't meant something, but this time around it actually means something, which I think is great. But what a difference, though. I mean, the Packers have just been absolutely struggling. They've lost 5 in a row. I mean, 5 in a row, 3 in a row. I mean, good grief. I mean, here's a team that was, the sexy pick in the NFC to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. But since then, they've been going downhill and not in a good way. 3 in a row they've lost since that 6-0 start. They lose at Denver, they lose at Carolina, and then they lose at home for the first time since 1991 to the Detroit Lions. The Packers lead the all-time series with Minnesota 57-48, 2 ties. The first one was in 1978. That was at Lambeau. That was a 10-10 tie. And the second one, I believe, was more recent. 2013, they had a 26-26 tie at Lambeau. The Packers, however, swept both meetings a year ago. They won 42-10 at Lambeau, and then 24-21 in TCF Bank Stadium at the University of Minnesota. Vikings last won at home against the Packers in 2012. Who will ever forget it? Week 17, that unforgettable 5-star classic Shakespearean drama. Adrian Peterson was going for the rushing record. Came up 9 yards short, but he put his team ahead of him. So very big of him to do that. So obviously the Packers have won the last 2 meetings in Minnesota. So what's going on with the Packers, guys? I mean, they lost 3 in a row, and it's getting so bad for them that some reports have even gone as far as to blame Aaron Rodgers' girlfriend, Olivia Munn, for the struggles. They think Olivia Munn is behind the struggles of Aaron Rodgers. I mean, yeah, that's how bad it's getting right now for the Green Bay Packers. I mean, blaming Olivia Munn for the struggles. I mean, I don't know what's up with that, but what I do know is this game means something. This is for sole possession of first in the NFC North. I mean, if Green Bay wins, they're right back there. I mean, this is going to be a great game here. I mean, you got the Packers. You know, the Packers are still there, even though they've lost 3 in a row. And Aaron Rodgers has struggled, yes. The running game has also struggled. Eddie Lacy, I mean, he needs to get going. And what about and then look at the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, look what's going on with the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, can you believe what's going on with Minnesota right now? I mean, we thought it was going to be another up and down year for them, but since they started 2-2, they've won 5 games in a row. They're on a 5-game winning streak right now. They haven't lost since that tough luck loss to Denver in Week 4. They had the bye in Week 5, but since Week 6 on, they've won. They've beaten KC, they've beaten Detroit, at Chicago, home against St. Louis, and then at Oakland a week ago. But Minnesota's got a murderer's row schedule for the next month. They got Green Bay at home, then they got to go to Atlanta, then they got Seattle coming in, then they got to go to Arizona on a Thursday night, and then they're at home against Chicago, then they got to host the Giants, and then close the year at Lambeau at Green Bay. If that doesn't scream murderer's row schedule, guys, I don't know what does. That is a murderer's row schedule for the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, the preliminary. Let me say it like this for the Minnesota Vikings. The preliminaries are over. Now it's time for the main event. The main event of the schedule. A main event schedule. I do have the article. I just found the article. Packers, Vikings, outdoors, the way it always used to be, and probably still should be, as everybody remembers back in the days when the Vikings were playing at the old Met, Metropolitan Stadium in Minnesota, the Met. Sure would be appropriate if a little snow would fall in the Twin Cities, too. At least the forecasts have been for a high temperature in the mid-30s. So, and it's also the first time all season that the Packers are going to be the underdog. So it's going to be high winds. It's going to be snowing, possibly, in Minnesota for this very pivotal game in the NFC Norris division. You know, channeling my inner Chris Berman, as you know. He used to call it the old Norris division. Everybody remembers that. As I look at the weather for the greater Minneapolis area, I mean, I just want to be sure about this because you guys know how much I love football in the snow, especially in those cold weather areas. Well, I don't really see snow in the forecast. I do see a high of 35 and a low of 30. So that's what I see for Sunday in the Minneapolis area. I'm going to check and see if I can get an hourly forecast here before I give it up to Bullock for his rundown. But all I know is this: I got to check and see who I have in my pigskin pick'em. But forecast calls for cloudy skies. It's going to be right around a 3 o'clock kickoff. It'll be right around 34 degrees. It'll feel like 24 at the start of the game. And then it'll end right around 6 or 7 or so. So we're looking at right around 31, 32 degrees at the end, but it'll feel more like 22 degrees. So it's going to be a cold one. It's going to be a cold one at TCF Bank Stadium. Nonetheless, Teddy Bridgewater coming off that concussion. We'll see if he can be ready to go for this huge matchup. Adrian Peterson, you know he's going to be ready. No doubt about that. Stephon Diggs will be ready. That defense will be ready. The Packers, Aaron Rodgers, Eddie Lacy, and James Starks in the running game. And the receiving core, Randall Cobb and everybody else. Sure would have been nice if they had Jordy Nelson, but we all know the story with him. So it's very tough to call. I mean, would I be surprised if the Green Bay Packers won this game? No way. Absolutely not. But with the way they're playing right now, and with the way the Vikings have been playing right now, I'm calling for the upset here. I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings to win this game. I think they can do it. I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings to do the unthinkable and beat the Green Bay Packers at TCF Bank Stadium at the University of Minnesota. Behind Bridgewater, Adrian Peterson, Stephon Diggs, and I think the defense will make just enough plays to lead the Vikings to this pivotal win. So I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings. Believe that. I believe in the Vikings right now. They're in the top 5, at least top 5, maybe even top 3 in the power rankings with the way they're going right now. So give me the Minnesota Vikings to win this game. The final score, 34-31. The Minnesota Vikings defeat the Green Bay Packers. Upset special once again. Michael Bullock, how do you follow that?
Man, I don't know how do you follow that, but I'm gonna try my best. But yeah, I mean Green Bay. I mean, what can you say about them? I mean, they started the season undefeated as well, and they've lost 3 in a row, especially losing to Detroit 18-16 at home. And of course, it was the Lions' first win at Lambeau Field since 1991. So yeah, so that didn't look good for them. And then, what can you say about the Minnesota Vikings? I mean, 7-2. I mean, they're off to their best start since the 2009 season. Of course, that was the year they went to the NFC Championship game, and a certain former Green Bay Packer was part of that team. Somebody by the name of Brett Favre. The last time I heard, he was pretty damn good when I check his resume. But yeah, Adrian Peterson. I mean, coming back from that suspension that he had, and he's looked like the old Adrian Peterson again, and he's averaged about 100, almost 144 yards on the ground so far in this season, and he ran for 203 last week against the Ravens. So yeah, like you said, because this game is in Minnesota, I gotta go with the Vikings in this one. I mean, I just haven't liked what I've seen from Green Bay as of late. So yeah, so give me the Minnesota Vikings to win this one. I'm gonna say my final score is gonna be, I'm gonna go 35-31. Minnesota beats Green Bay. So Fletcher, your thoughts on America's Game of the Week?
Yeah, this is a very exciting game, an absolute amazing battle coming up this week between Minnesota and Green Bay, and I gotta say, I think it's gonna be a thrilling matchup to say the very least. And at the end of the day, it's gonna come down to who really wants it more, who's gonna be the better team, who's gonna really step it up. And I agree with you guys. Minnesota Vikings is the team that I would go with at home. I think Adrian Peterson's going to have a great running game. I think he's really established to be that dominant runner like he used to be, And give it up for Teddy Bridgewater. I think he's done a tremendous job as a quarterbacking. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers has been struggling, but remember, there is no Jordy Nelson at the end of the day. So I think it's going to be a little better. We'll wait and see what happens. But at least in my eyes, it's been a tremendous performance, to say the very least. And there's really nothing more to say. 31-28, Green Bay loses to Minnesota. Anthony, it's yours. Let's move on to the next game.
All right. Let's see what we have next up here on this edition of NFL Friday, which is getting we got some exciting things to come here. I think we only have
Seattle.
Yeah, we only have 3 games left, and it's the other 4:25 game on Fox. It will be the San Francisco 49ers going up against the Seattle Seahawks at CenturyLink Field in Seattle, and this game will be on Fox. Chris Myers, Rondé Barber, and Jennifer Hale, they're going to have the call for Fox on this one. And the spreads, Michael Fletcher, while I get it, I think you have the spread on this one, right?
with San Fran and Seattle?
Yes, I actually do. Just give me 1 second. Actually, this is the biggest spread of the week. It is Seattle by 13 points. Is what I got here. Seattle by 13. It is the biggest spread of the weekend.
Okay. Um, so yeah, I mean, a near 2 touchdown spread for the Seattle Seahawks, and rightfully so. Um, all right. Yep, I have it here. I just wanted to check it. Well, it's a little different on mine. It's 12.5 to 13.5 for the Seabags at home against the 49ers, and rightfully so, because we all know the Niners are terrible this year. And before I give it to Michael Bullock for his thoughts, this is their second meeting this year. As I recall, they have met already this year. They met in San Francisco on a Thursday night recently. I do know the Seahawks won that game, so including that game, and what I have on my notes here, Seattle now leads the all-time series 18-15 with that win in San Francisco, which is their second in a row. Last time the 49ers won in Seattle, you got to go back to 2011. That was a 19-17 win for the 49ers in Seattle. But since then, it's been all 49. I mean, it's been all Seahawks in Seattle. 42-13 in 2012, 29-3 in 2013. Also won that NFC Championship game, that thrilling game, that 5-star Shakespearean drama-laden classic, and then 17-7 a year ago as the Seahawks swept the 49ers last year. So, Michael Bullock, I ask you, San Francisco 49ers, Seattle Seahawks by 12.5 to 13.5. Sounds like we have a lock of the week here, don't we?
It does sound like it, and lo and behold, I mean, 2 seasons ago, these two teams were battling for the NFC Championship. It was 2 seasons ago, and lo and behold, here we are, two years later. Now these same two teams, I mean, they're under 500, and San Francisco's the worst of it at 3-6, and Seattle, I mean, they've been pretty disappointing this season. A team that has been to back-to-back Super Bowls. So yeah. As for the 49ers, of course, I mean, the 49ers will try to make it 2 in a row, of course, under Blaine Gabbert, and of course Seattle. I mean, they've lost 2 in a row at home, and if they lose, it could be their first 3-game losing streak at home in 7 years. I mean, who would think that with the way the team plays at home? So, of course, especially after what happened last week when the Seahawks, lost 39-32 to the Arizona Cardinals. So, and yeah, I mean, for Seattle, the Legion of Boom, which has been good the last 3. Well, I think it's the last 3 years, but so far, I mean, in the losses, they've been giving up almost 31 points a game and 393 yards. And 4 of those, 4 of the 5 losses have come against teams that are in the playoffs. So yeah. So, and of course, the 49ers, of course, they're coming off of a 17-16 upset of the Falcons, thanks to a good game by Blaine Gabbert. Went 15 of 25 for 185 yards and a couple of touchdowns. So, yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how he does in this start. And so, of course, you had Anquan Bolden helping out in the win, and so, of course, So who do I have winning this one? Of course, it's obvious. I got Seattle winning this one big. I think my final score for me is going to be. I'm going to go 31. I'm going to go 31 to 10 is going to be my final score. Russell Wilson will have a solid game. Marshawn Lynch will go beast mode on the 49ers. Jimmy Graham will also have a solid game here. And I think the defense will definitely get back on track here. So give me the Seahawks to win this one. So, Fletch, I give it to you.
Biggest spread of the week, I'm going with Seattle. There's really nothing more to say. It's Seattle's to win. So, Anthony, it's yours.
Yeah, I'm going to round it out. Excuse me. Seattle Seahawks will win this one. They've dominated the Niners at home the last 3 years, like I said. So I don't expect that to change here. I mean, just like Seattle dominated them in San Francisco on that Thursday night game just a few short weeks ago. I mean, Seahawks coming off of that tough loss to Arizona. It was on October 22nd. Seattle went into San Francisco, beat up on the 49ers. 20-3 was the final on that Thursday night. Seattle just dominated. Even though they committed 2 turnovers in that game. They outgained the 49ers 388 to 142. Yeah, they hold the Niners to 142 total yards, 8 total first downs. And also, the defense recorded 6 sacks of Colin Kaepernick. But Russell Wilson was sacked 5 times in that game as well. He was sacked 5 times. The defenses came to play. The defenses combined for 11 sacks. Oh, by the way. Marshawn Lynch had 122 yards rushing and a touchdown. Wilson had a solid game, but not overly spectacular. He threw 2 interceptions, but he had a touchdown pass. Lynch, like I said, 122 yards and a touchdown, and Tyler Lockett, 79 yards and a touchdown to lead the receiving corps. So I'm expecting Wilson and Lynch and the receiving corps, Jimmy Graham, Jermaine Kearse, and Doug Baldwin and all of them, I think, and Lockett. I think they're all going to have big games. I think the defense will get to Kaepernick and fluster him. Fluster the running game, which held the Niners to only 61 yards total yards rushing. Carlos Hyde and Reggie Bush. They're going to get contained. Vernon Davis is no longer there. He's in Denver. So the receiving corps, good luck trying to outwit the Legion of Booms. So Seahawks are going to win this one. They're going to win this one going away. Final score here, I will go. I'm going to go 41 to 10. Seattle in the lock of the week. And now, here we go. This is it. This is the big one right here. The next 2 games, guys, are to me, when it comes to our side of the ball, the AFC side, the 2 biggest games of the week right here. And we're going to start with what I consider the game of the week. Sunday Night Football. Originally, this was supposed to be the late game on CBS, but it was flexed to the Sunday night game. Thank you, NFL scheduling committee, for putting this as the Sunday Night Football game instead of that god-awful Chiefs-Chargers game. Because we're going to get the 8-1 Cincinnati Bengals against the 7-2 Arizona Cardinals, University of Phoenix Stadium, Arizona, in Glendale, Arizona. We're going to be there for that one. That's where it's going to be. You know who it's going to be for NBC, as always. Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth, Michelle Tafoya. They'll be in the desert for this huge showdown. Perhaps a possible Super Bowl preview, maybe. You never know. Maybe. Spread favors the Arizona Cardinals by 4.5 to 5 points, according to my spread here. Series history, the Cincinnati Bengals lead the all-time series 6-4. Last meeting came in 2011. That was in Cincinnati. The Bengals won that one 23-16. Last time they met in Arizona was in 2003. The Cardinals won that game 17-14. And here's an interesting note, guys. The Cincinnati Bengals have never won at the Cardinals franchise, whether they were the St. Louis Cardinals, the Phoenix Cardinals, or as they are now, the Arizona Cardinals. All 6 Bengals wins in this series have all been either at Riverfront, at their old home of at their old home of Riverfront Stadium, Synergy Field in Seattle, or I should say in Cincinnati, rather. Yeah, all 6 wins in Cincinnati. They've never won at St. Louis when they were at Busch Stadium. Never won at the old Sun Devil Stadium, and they certainly haven't won at this venue yet because this is the first time they're ever going to be at this venue. Because in 2003, they were still in Tempe at Sun Devil Stadium. So there's your schematic right there. Michael Fletcher, this is our game of the week right here, buddy. This is the game that you and I are going to have the most vested of interests in. So, will I say it? Hello, friends. Michael Fletcher. I think it's about time to break out the Phil Simms like you always do. So, Cincinnati and Arizona, our game of the week, bud. It's all yours, Professor.
There's really nothing more to say. The Arizona Cardinals are 16-4 at home in Bruce Arians' 3 seasons as head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. On top of that, here's the other breakdowns that goes to this game. Arizona, the number 1 offensive team in all of the NFL. Number 4 in passing. Carson Palmer averages almost 297 yards per game. Their rushing is 8 in the league. They scored the second highest amount of points in all of the NFL at 33.6, and their third down conversions, they are 46.3, which is third best in the NFL. Where the Cincinnati Bengals, their offensively, are the 7th highest in the NFL at 376 yards, 260 passing yards, which is 15th best in the league, 115 rushing yards, which is 13th best in the league. They average about 26 points per game, which is 5th best in the league. And on top of that, they average 43.2 on the third down conversions, which is 9th best. The one factor that's going to be really good in this game is going to be defensively. Both teams are practically in the top 10 defensively. Arizona, the 3rd best defense in the NFL. The Cincinnati Bengals, the 10th best defense in the NFL. On top of that, when you go to the breakdown and you actually were saying about with everything else, the key injuries that's going into this game, especially for either team, Larry Fitzgerald actually just got posted into the injury report with an ankle, but he is probable. He most likely will play in the game. Definitely the biggest matchup is, basically Cincinnati has a little less time to really think about what happened, especially last week, as they only produced a season-low 256 yards of total offense and failed to score a touchdown for the first time this season. Andy Dalton had only 197 yards passing, a passer rating of 61, and was a completion rate of 57.9. Remember, the one thing we always talk about when it comes to Cincinnati, they're always good during the day games. They're always good against certain teams, but when they play in like a nationally televised audience, like a big matchup, sometimes they play really, really bad. Arizona has scored 73 points in the last 2 games. That's pushed their season total to 302, and right now they are on pace. They are on pace to break their own record, or franchise record, of 427 points that they scored in 2008. This is the second time Carson Palmer is going to be facing his old team since the threats of retirement. In the last time that he played against them, he went 19 for 34 with 146 yards, with one TD and 1 INT, and a 34-10 loss to the Oakland Raiders. That was on November 25th, 2012. And on top of that, basically Carson Palmer is basically going up against one of the stingiest defenses, like I said. Basically what what the Bengals have done right now is they've allowed 16.9 points per game, and they are on pace of yielding only 270 points total, which the club has not given. This would be the fewest they have given up ever in a 16-game season since 1978, where they had 284 points given up in their season. Basically, Arizona has topped 400 yards in 4 consecutive games. That's the longest streak they've ever had since 1950. And on top of that, with some of their key injuries that's going on, especially with the last time that they faced, like you said, Dalton had 2 first-half touchdowns that gave him an insurmountable lead. However, like you said, the Bengals are lifetime 0-2 in Arizona. The last time that they did face off with each other was in Cincinnati, which was 23-16. That was on December 24, 2011. Anthony, the keys to the game is pretty simple. If you can get to Andy Dalton, if you can fluster him, try to shut down Tyler Eifert, shut down AJ Green, and that would be the key that you have to do. If you look at the way that Arizona played, they almost played a perfect game in the first half. They were establishing the pass, a good running game against a very good vaunted Seattle defense. They kind of strayed away at that, and that's where mistakes occurred at the end. Basically, it was a tremendous performance. Actually, I should say Arizona won, I'm sorry, because of the fact that they did play that smart football like I was telling you about. And what is there to say after Andre Ellington broke one that was a huge back-breaking touchdown, and Carson Palmer had probably one of the best games of his career, 29 of 48, 363, 3 touchdowns, 1 INT. And then on top of that, Michael Floyd had a tremendous game, 7 catches for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. If he gets that type of performance, then Arizona will win this game, and I believe they will win this one. This is definitely going to be a tremendous battle, 35-28. Give me the Arizona Cardinals to win the game. Anthony, it is all yours.
Oh, he did the Phil Simms thing. I like. Oh, that was awesome. But nonetheless, this is indeed the game of the week. This is the game that Fletch and I will have the most vested interest in. I know Bullock will too, but I tell you what. I mean, wow, Cincinnati coming off their first loss of the year, an absolutely piss-poor pedestrian performance against the Houston Texans on Monday night. The Arizona Cardinals winning a shootout with the Seattle Seahawks. Go figure. I mean, that game went from a dud to a damn near 5-star classic right before our very eyes, because that game was a snoozer at first, but then the game really got going afterwards. So I'll tell you, I mean, it's Carson Palmer against his former team. Carson Palmer against the Cincinnati Bengals. You know he's gonna want to win this one very badly. I mean, they're very tough to beat in Arizona. Everyone knows that. I mean, you know, like Fletch said, I mean, what was that, 16-4 or something like that you said in Bruce Arians' 3 years? Wow, that's incredible. So that's a very high win percentage. Quarterback-wise, Andy Dalton against Carson Palmer. I like them both. So I really don't know who to give the edge to. I probably would have to give a slight edge to Palmer in this case. Running game, you got Jeremy Hill and Gio Bernard for Cincy. You got Ellington in them for Arizona, Chris Johnson rather. Receiving cores, both receiving cores are top notch. You know, AJ Green and Tyler Eifert and Marvin Jones for Cincinnati, and Larry Fitzgerald and Michael Floyd and John Brown and then for Arizona. So some solid defenses. So, and you got 2 great coaches. I like both coaches, but I got to give the slight edge to Bruce Arians in this case. He's had more. His body of work's been better than Marvin Lewis's. So it's simple as this. I think this game has the potential to be a 5-star classic. I think we could get some Shakespearean drama in this one. I think this will be a high-scoring affair since this will be, you know, played under a roof. I think they'll have the roof closed up for this one. I wouldn't be surprised. So tough one to call. I mean, would I be surprised if Cincinnati won? No, I would not. But at the end of the day, though, I have to go with the Arizona Cardinals in this one. I say Arizona wins this one. I agree with Michael Fletcher. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I'm going to go a little bit higher than his score, just a smidge. I will say 38-31. The Arizona Cardinals over the Cincinnati Bengals behind a huge game, mainly from Carson Palmer. I think Carson Palmer is going to be the difference maker because he's going to want to stick it to his former team. No doubt about it. So Zona wins 38-31. This is the game of the week. I don't care what anybody says. Michael Bullock, Cincinnati and Arizona, this huge Sunday night possible Super Bowl preview, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think it's a possible Super Bowl preview. And, I mean, Cincinnati, I mean, they had their undefeated streak come to an end last Monday night. I mean, this past Monday night where they lost 10-6 to the Houston Texans. So basically, I mean, Andy Dalton had probably one of his worst outings in a while, where he posted a passer rating of 61, only 197 yards passing, and a completion percentage of 57.9. And yeah, and I mean, the defense played fine, but it was just their offense really couldn't get anything going at all. So, and of course, now they got to go up against an Arizona Cardinals team that put up 39 points against the Seattle Seahawks last week, and yeah, it's Carson Palmer going up against his former team, and I get the feeling that he's going to want to stick it to his former team, and yeah, and of course they could be getting Mike Iupati back after a scary collision that resulted in him being taken to the hospital. So he might be playing, and while John Brown and Michael Floyd are listed as questionable. So we'll see what happens with that. But you still got Larry Fitzgerald as well. I mean, you also got Andre Ellington and the reviving Chris Johnson. So because Arizona's playing at home, and the way I love this offense, I got to give the slight edge to the Arizona Cardinals. I got them winning this one. I think this could be another high-scoring affair. My final score for me is going to be the Arizona Cardinals 41 and the Cincinnati Bengals 34. So there's really nothing more to say except, Florio, it's Monday Night Football time, and you and I are going to have a lot of fun with this one.
You better believe it, buddy. Oh, yeah, we are going to have some
Buddy
fun
ball
with this
time.
one. Indeed. For the second time this year, oh, by the way. This is our final game of the week here on NFL Friday. Monday Night Football. And, oh, by the way, this is, in my opinion, the number 2 game of the week. The game that Michael Bullock, along with Derek Ferreira, I know will have a major vested interest in, as all of us will. The Buffalo Bills. That's right, my Buffalo Bills. Going up against Michael Bullock and Derek Ferreira and so many other people I know. New England Patriots. Gillette Stadium in Foxborough on Monday night, ESPN. You know who's going to be there for this one. Mike Tirico, John Gruden, Lisa Salters. They'll be in Foxborough for this huge Monday night matchup. The 5-4 Buffalo Bills, the 9-0 and number 1 New England Patriots. Of course, the spread favors the New England Patriots. Patriots are 7 to 7.5 point favorites. This is their second meeting. They already met earlier this year. They met back in week 2. The New England Patriots won that game in Buffalo at Ralph Wilson Stadium. They beat the Bills 40-32 in a very exciting shootout. And the series history favors, of course, the New England Patriots, including that Patriot win in Buffalo in week 2. New England now leads the all-time series 67-42 with a tie. The one tie was in 1962. That was in Buffalo. Oh, by the way, for those of you scoring at home. And the last meeting in Foxborough, who won that one, by the way? Oh, yeah, it was my Buffalo Bills who won that game. But I don't know why I'm gloating. I shouldn't be gloating because it was a meaningless game.
It was the regular season finale, and the Patriots literally had
17.
nothing to play for.
They had nothing to play for. All their they had all their superstars on rest. They had, Brady and Gronk and Edelman and all them. Buffalo won that game 17-9 to win in New England for the first time since the year 2000. Me and Michael Fletcher, it was our junior year in high school. Bullock was a sophomore. Yeah, I remember that very vividly. The year 2000, November 2000 to be exact. Buffalo won on a late field goal, and that's when Doug Flutie was still playing for them. So,
And
so
that was
there's
Bill
that.
Belichick's first year as the Patriots coach.
Indeed, it was. And that win by Buffalo snapped a 6-game winning streak by the New England Patriots because they split in 2011, and then the Patriots swept in 2012 and 13. But they split last year, both teams winning on the road. New England won in Buffalo, Buffalo won in Foxborough, and New England won in Buffalo this year. So, but this rivalry has been very one-sided, though. That's all there is to say about that. New England has absolutely owned Buffalo. I mean, Buffalo has only beaten them 3 times in the better, like 3 or 4 times in the better part of the last decade and a half. I mean, since the year 2000, Buffalo has only beaten the Patriots 4 times. That's it. Of course, the year 2000 in Foxborough. Week 1, opening day, 2003. Michael Fletcher, you and I know this one very well. The 31-0 beatdown, and boy, did we have fun with that one. And then 2011, Week 3 in 2011, 5-star classic, Shakespearean drama. Buffalo won that game 34-31. Both teams were 2-0, and Buffalo beat New England to go to 3-0.
And
That's the one.
let's not forget a certain legendary commentator called that game for CBS.
Of course,
That was the great Marv Albert.
Marv Albert. Yes. Yes, Marv Albert called that game indeed. From way downtown. Yes, he called that one from way downtown, no doubt about it. But yes, so that's that. Those are pretty much all the schematics for that one. So this is the number 2 game of the week as far as the AFC is concerned. I mean, this is going to be a great matchup here. I mean, we all know what happened in Week 2. I mean, 40-32, 5-star classic of a game, Shakespearean drama in that one. And you look at the numbers in that game. New England put up 507 yards of offense. Buffalo had 349. Both teams were very sloppy. I mean, both teams combined for 5 turnovers. New England had 2. Buffalo had 3. But here's the thing, though. The New England defense was the difference maker. The Patriots' defense. They forced 3 Buffalo turnovers and recorded 8 sacks. They sacked Tyrod Taylor 8 times in that game. The Buffalo defense was not too shabby. Even though Buffalo's defense gave up 507 yards to the Patriots, they forced 2 Patriot turnovers, both fumbles, and also sacked Tom Brady twice. But it was the New England defense that was the difference maker. Tom Brady, 466 yards passing and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, a rating of 105.6. Dion Lewis had 40 yards and a touchdown. Rob Gronkowski, 113 yards and a touchdown. Julian Edelman, 97 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dion Lewis had 138 all-purpose yards and a touchdown in that game. 40 rushing, 98 receiving. But he had the rushing touchdown in that game as well.
And I hate to say it, but
A
he
lot
ain't
has
walking
changed.
through that door.
No. And yes, Michael Bowles, you set it up perfectly. I'm going to channel my inner Rick Pitino from his introductory press conference when he was named the head coach of the Boston Celtics. Dion Lewis ain't walking through that door. Julian Edelman is not walking through that door.
Well,
Dion Lewis, as you all know,
season.
Dion Lewis got hurt, and he's done for the season. He got tore up very badly. Julian Edelman, in that unforgettable 5-star, and what was yet another 5-star Shakespearean drama classic with the New York Giants. Edelman breaks his foot. He's out for the remainder of the regular season. There is a possibility he could be back in time for the playoffs. So I know Patriot fans, especially Mr. Michael Bullock, is holding his collective breath right now. But here's the thing, though. You still got Tom Brady. You still got Rob Gronkowski. You still got Danny Amendola. Amendola is going to have to really pick up the slack now. And as well as Brandon LaFell. And you still got a more than capable running back in LeGarrette Blount. And I think all those guys are going to have big games. No question about that. For the Buffalo Bills, well, I'll get to Buffalo in a minute. The New England Patriots, much to the delight of Michael Bullock, nobody wanted this win much more. I mean, I know all the other Patriot fans I know in my life, mainly those in my church family, who, of course, I'll mention at the end when we do our shout-outs, and Derek Ferrera, of course, but nobody wanted this win against the Giants any more than one Michael James Bullock. Am I right, Mr. Bullock?
Damn straight.
And we had that fun moment on the show. You channeled your inner Vince McMahon on Stone Cold Steve Austin. You hated the Giants, and you still hate the Giants, I know. But I just have a simple question for you real quick, Bullock. How did you feel when you saw Steven Gostkowski hit that 54-yard field goal with 1 second to beat those SOBs?
I felt very relieved that finally we were able to beat them. I mean, it felt like a 1,000 pounds of brick lifted off my back. I mean, I was been waiting for that moment for something to go our way, because last couple times last 3 times we faced the Giants, things didn't go our way, but thankfully we got it this time thanks to Mr. Steven Gostkowski. And I had to say it, best kicker in the National Football League.
Amen to that. No question about that. I mean, 54 yards. I mean, and that game last week, we're all in agreement here. What is it about the Patriots and the Giants every time they get together? The last 4 times, 5-star classics, all of them, chock full of Shakespearean drama at its absolute finest. And that game right there, whew, my. That was as good as it could get right there. We'll break down that sucker in just a little bit, trust me. As far as the Buffalo Bills are concerned, of course we all know the Patriots are undefeated. We know where they're going to be in the power rankings, trust me. Buffalo Bills 5-4. They've won 2 in a row. They beat Fletcher's Dolphins November the 8th, much to my delight, sweeping the season series for the second time in 3 years, by the way. Thank you very much. And then 4 days later, they go into MetLife Stadium and beat the New York Jets in a game that I call the Christmas Bowl. Buffalo dressed in all red. The Jets were dressed in all green. Insert your jokes there. But the Bills won the game 22-17. No joke. You know they won it. I mean, I know the game in New England last year was meaningless. I get it. But Buffalo still won for the first time since the year 2000 at the old Foxborough Stadium. The Bills forced 4 Jet turnovers. They only had 1 sack of old teammate Ryan Fitzpatrick. I know they were outgained 318 to 280. They only had 13 total first downs, but they just found a way to get it done. I mean, it was their defense. The defense was the difference maker, especially those 4 turnovers. I mean, Tyrod Taylor had a solid game, no question. LaShawn McCoy, his best game as a Buffalo Bill, 112 yards rushing. That's why we picked him up from Philadelphia. Receiving core needed some work, but McCoy was the hero. I mean, he had 159 all-purpose yards. No touchdowns, but hey, he still contributed. And Fletcher, your old buddy, Charles Clay, he led the receiving core at 52 yards. So, and Dan Carpenter missed an extra point, but other than that, he had 3 field goals, including a long of 47. So, I'll say it like this. Of course, I want the Buffalo Bills to win, obviously. And I'll tell you what, if the Buffalo Bills go into Foxborough and beat the Patriots, Michael Bullock, I'm just going to simply say this straight to you, man. if Buffalo goes into Foxborough and beats the Patriots, of course, this will be with all due respect, of course. I am going to laugh in your face so damn hard, just like I laughed in Michael Fletcher's face the 2 times my Bills beat down his Miami Dolphins this year, sweeping that series for the second time in 3 years. So be forewarned, my man. If my Bills go into Foxborough and do the unthinkable again, they're capable. There's always a chance. You never know. I mean, hey, if Houston can go into Cincinnati and beat the Bengals, surely the Buffalo Bills can go into New England and beat the Patriots again. But this time, it's not a meaningless game. Brady and all them will be playing. But here's the thing. No Deion Lewis, no Julian Edelman. That helps us a bit. But as much as I think Tyrod Taylor's going to play well, I think Shady McCoy's going to play well, I think Sammy Watkins and Charles Clay in the receiving corps, they'll play well. It's still New England. It's still Tom Brady. It's still Gronk. It's still blunt force trauma. The New England Patriots are going to win this game. I think Buffalo will give them some fits, but New England's just going to. I see New England winning and pulling away late. I say the New England Patriots will win it one more time and continue their dominance of the Bills, as much as I don't like to see it. 38-28. That's my final score. 38-28. The New England Patriots over the Buffalo Bills at Gillette Stadium on Monday Night Football. Fletcher says he's got the Patriots to win. Fletcher's out for the rest of the show. So, Michael Bullock, the yes movement runs the rest of the show. So, Bills and Patriots, my man, Monday Night Football. I know who you got, but I just want to get your thoughts on this game anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about the Patriots finally getting that win over the Giants, and basically we just talked about it, and yeah, I mean, and remember, Florio, I mean, the win over for the Bills over the Patriots last season, even though it wasn't meaningless, I gotta tell you, I mean, that was their first win ever at Gillette Stadium, because, like you said, the last time they won was, of course, in 2000. That was the old Foxborough Stadium, so they never won Gillette Stadium till last season. So, but yeah, this would be a huge win for the Buffalo Bills if they can get a win on Monday Night Football and hand the Patriots their first loss of the season. I mean, I think the offense is going to be fine for the Patriots, of course. You still got Tom Brady. You still got Gronk. You got and here's another guy who I think could play a huge role in the offense, Brandon LaFell. We can't forget about him. I think he's starting to come on since missing the first few games of the season. I think it was because of a foot injury. So, and don't sleep on the defense as well. I mean, the defense has been playing good this season, and of course Malcolm Butler leading the way. And here's another guy who's been a contributor, Malcolm Brown, the first round pick of the Patriots. I think he's had a good season. So. Yeah, so the Bills, I mean the offense, both offensively, defensively, have to step up if they have any shot of being good. So I got the Patriots, of course, winning this one.
Be right there. Just give me a second.
Huh? Oh, what did you just say?
No, I just had to tie up a loose end. Are you all set?
Oh, I had to. Well, I gotta give you my final score. So.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 30. I'm gonna go 38-24 is gonna be the final score for me. So, yeah, now I'm all set. So
yeah.
Let's get to the power rankings now.
Yeah. For those of you wondering, Michael Fletcher had to leave us. He's got work commitments in the mornings, so we lose Fletch for the rest of the show. He does, however, also have the New England Patriots winning this game, and can't say I'm surprised by that. So, all right. Of course, next week, when it comes to it, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently next week. of course, as you all know, there are 3 Thanksgiving games, and we're going to preview those 3 games as part of our Strictly Sports football feast on Wednesday night. So we'll have that. And as I look at the schedule for next week, I do see some interesting. I do see a good few games here. I mean, of course, Chicago and Green Bay on Thanksgiving. That game just got interesting, obviously. The Minnesota Vikings against the Atlanta Falcons. That's an interesting. That's another headline game right there. The St. Louis Rams against the Cincinnati Bengals in a sleeper matchup there. New Orleans Saints against the Houston Texans. There's a sleeper matchup. The Buffalo Bills against the Kansas City Chiefs. Miami Dolphins against the New York Jets. Huge game in the NFC East. The New York Giants and the Washington Redskins. And, of course, the 2 big games of the week next week for my taste, the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Seattle Seahawks. And, of course, the game of the week next week, regardless of whether it's Peyton Manning or Brock Osweiler, I still consider it the game of the week regardless. The New England Patriots and the Denver Broncos. That's all next week. Of course, the Thanksgiving games will be on Wednesday night as part of Football Feast, just to give you a little programming note. So, with all that said, it is now time for the main event of our show, as per usual, the Strictly Sports, the NFL Power Rankings. They're here and they're now. Be forewarned, there are going to be some pretty significant shakeups, if I do say so myself. I'll say it like this: the top 2 are going to be absolute no-brainers. Heck, I could even go as far as to say the top 3, or maybe even top 4, are going to be no-brainers. It's just 5 through 10. How in the world are we going to rank that? I don't know. It's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination. So with all that said, Bullock, I'm guessing I'm going to have to start it off at number 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of felt that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see. As I look at it, I do have some honorable mentions. I got quite a few honorable mentions, to be honest with you. First and foremost, the Kansas City Chiefs. Honorable mention. They've won 3 in a row. If they win against San Diego, which I think they will, I could see putting them in the power rankings next week. Another honorable mention, the Houston Texans. They've won 2 in a row. They're 4-5. Watch out for them. They beat the Jets, they might be in. Indianapolis Colts on the outside looking in, as far as power rankings are concerned. And even the Washington Redskins on another honorable mention. Tampa Bay Buccaneers honorable mention. Heck, the Chicago Bears are an honorable mention. So that's pretty much it as far as honorable mentions are concerned. I do have a couple of duds. The New York Giants are out. Goodbye, New York Giants. Tough luck loss to Mr. Bullock's Patriots a week ago in that 5-star Shakespearean drama-laden game. But you already knew that. So they're gone. So now that pretty much takes care of that. So I know this is going to be a very surprising number 10, but honestly, I honestly don't care because with the way this team has been playing right now, they're on life support when it comes to the power rankings. And if they lose again on Sunday, they're going to be out of the ranking. I could honestly go as far as to say they could be out of the rankings altogether next week. My number 10, I said there were going to be some significant shakeups, and I'm not going to disappoint you folks. My number 10 is the Green Bay Packers. Yeah. They've lost 3 in a row. But what really did it for me was losing at home against the Detroit Lions for the first time in almost 25 years. 1991. A game they should have won, and should have won quite considerably, considering how piss poor the Lions are this year. I gotta really stick it to this team really hard. They have to win against Minnesota on Sunday. If they do, not only are they going to still be in the rankings, but I'll see about moving them up a little bit next week. But if they lose, which there's a very realistic chance they could be literally out of the power rankings next week. And I never thought I would say that about a team that damn good. But I got to be honest with you all. I'm just calling it as I see it. Calling it as I see it. Number 10, the Green Bay Packers. Michael Bullock, how in the world do you follow that?
I don't know. How do you follow that? I'm actually going to agree with you. Green Bay Packers are my number 10. And like you said, the reason why, losing to a team that's now 2-7. No, I don't. I'm not going to accept it. And like you said, if they lose again, I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but they could be out of the power rankings. So we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. So yeah, so my number 10 is the Green Bay Packers. So let's move on to number 9.
All right. I'll tell you right now, as far as my number 9 is concerned, it's between two teams. It's between the Pittsburgh Steelers and my Buffalo Bills, if I'm going to be quite honest. As I look at the body of work of both teams, I'm gonna have to give the Steelers the edge here. So I'm gonna have my Buffalo Bills at number 9 once again this week. I had them at 9 last week. I'm gonna keep them there this week. They've won 2 in a row. They defeated the New York Jets last Thursday night on Thursday Night Football, the Christmas Bowl. Remember, that's what I've called it, the Christmas Bowl, because it was red and green all around. Defense forces 4 turnovers, gets a sack, and Tyrod Taylor, solid and efficient game, like I mentioned earlier. Shady McCoy had his best game as a Bill with 112 yards rushing. He had 161 all-purpose yards in that actually 159 yards, all-purpose yards to lead the way, and the defense pretty much took care of the rest. So yes, number 9 for me, very tough, but number 9 is the Buffalo Bills on my end. So Michael Bullock, you're number 9.
Yeah, my number 9. I got to go with the Buffalo Bills as well. So yeah, so you pretty much touched on them. So let's move on to our number 8. And I think we already know. I mean, I think we can both agree it is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean,
actually, no. Actually, it's different. We have a bye week situation. Remember, we had the Atlanta Falcons as our number 8 last week.
Oh, so that would mean the Atlanta Falcons. We have to keep them at number 8. So Atlanta Falcons are number 8 because of, like you said, the bye week. We can't really punish them. So
no.
So yeah, they got a huge. I mean, of course, they got the Indianapolis Colts this week, and they'll look to try to bounce back because remember, they lost to the San Francisco 49ers. That's one that really hurts them, and so like I said, I expect Matty Ryan, Devontae Freeman, Julio Jones, and everyone else to play a huge role in getting this win here. So if they win, they'll definitely take a move up. But if they lose, who knows? Maybe they could be on the verge of being out of it. I mean, out of the power rankings. So we'll have to wait and see on that. So my number 8 is the Atlanta Falcons. So Florio, it's yours. Can't believe we forgot about the whole bye week rule.
Yeah, it comes into play here. And like Bullock said, yes, indeed, it is the Atlanta Falcons at number 8. So we're just going to move on to number 7. And this is where I have the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 7 in the power rankings this week. Last time we saw them, they took care of business. A decisive win against the Cleveland Browns, 30-9. They've won 2 in a row. They had that wild shootout with the Raiders, 38-35, and then the 30-9 beatdown of the Cleveland Browns at Heinz Field a week ago. They're on bye, so they're going to stay at number 7 when we do our rankings next week. Before, of course, their big showdown with the Seattle Seahawks, which I consider the number 2 game of the week on our end for next week. Offense puts up 459 yards of offense. Yeah, they committed 2 turnovers, and there was 1 quarterback sack. It was Ben Roethlisberger who was sacked. Landry Jones had the start, but Ben Roethlisberger came in relief. He actually was able to go, and we'll get to him in a minute because he was awesome. But here's the thing, Bullock. Yes, the Steeler defense allowed 342 yards to the Browns, but here come 2 numbers that you're gonna love. The Steeler defense forced 3 Browns turnovers and recorded 6 sacks of Johnny Overhype. Johnny Overhype was sacked 6 times. Oh, did I love seeing that? But I will give Johnny Football credit. Johnny Football had a great game. He threw for 372 yards and a touchdown, but he threw for an interception. He played well. But Ben Roethlisberger, though, here's a guy coming off of a foot injury. We didn't know if he was going to be able to go. We thought he was going to be out. We thought Landry Jones was going to go. But Landry Jones, I guess he got hurt or something. I don't know. Roethlisberger comes in, and he picks up right where he leaves off. 379 yards, 3 touchdowns. Yeah, he threw a pick, but who cares? Rating of 123.2. The running game was the only concern. D'Angelo Williams only had 54 yards. But it was Martavis Bryant, 178 yards and a touchdown. Antonio Brown follows it up with 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. So 6 sacks for the defense. Defense was all over the place. Lawrence Timmons, Ryan Shazier, Cameron Hayward, Stephen Tuitt. They all had 1 whole sack apiece, and a half a sack for Jarvis Jones and Arthur Moats. So yeah, 6 total sacks for the Steelers against Johnny Football there. So a very impressive performance by the Steelers, offensively, defensively, no matter how you slice it, against the Cleveland Browns. So yeah, I got to reward them for that. So they're my number 7 in the power rankings. The Pittsburgh Steelers, wave those terrible towels. Michael Bullock, you're number 7.
Yep, the Pittsburgh Steelers are my number 7 as well. So, yeah, so let's not waste any more time. Let's move on to our number 6. So, and I'll take this one. My number 6.
All right.
My number 6, I got to go with the Denver Broncos as my number 6.
Yes.
I mean, that game last week against, they've lost 2 in a row, and what happened last week was, that was tough to watch, especially Peyton Manning. I mean, getting picked off 4 times in that game. 4 times. I mean, yes, he did break the passing yards record, but that was probably one of his worst performances that I've seen in a long time. I mean, the defense didn't play all that well either in that game as well. So, yes, of course, Brock Osweiler is going to get his first start, and well, it'll be very interesting to see how they do in this game. But that defense is really going to need to step up. Von Miller will have to step up even more. I mean, he had a sack, of course, in the loss. Chris Harris Jr. will have to step up, and yes, they are going to get Aqib Talib back. So, but I do expect the Broncos to bounce back, but I think it could be really close. So, my number 6 is the Denver Broncos. Number 6.
Michael Bullock, I agree with you. I have the Denver Broncos as my number 6 as well. I mean, you must have read my mind or something, but yeah, I mean, absolutely spot on. They've lost 2 in a row after a 7-0 start. They had that tough loss at Indianapolis on November 8th. And then, of course, last week, that piss poor performance, that dreadful performance against the Kansas City Chiefs. Peyton Manning, I'll say it again, 5 out of 20 for 35 yards and 4 interceptions. That was not a dud enhancement. You would think that was a dud enhancement quarterback. No, that was Peyton Manning who had that stat line, folks. Quarterback rating, one more time, his quarterback rating, Peyton Manning, 0. 0.0.
Zilch. Nada. Absolutely nothing.
Offense puts up only 221 yards of total offense. They allowed 303 to Kansas City. 18 total first downs. Boy. The running game only combined for 69 yards rushing. Manning was also sacked twice, by the way. And Brock Osweiler was also sacked 3 times. Hillman only had 42 yards rushing to lead the running game. Demaryius Thomas only has 71 yards receiving. That's all. And that was it. Derek Johnson, Jay Hayward, Justin Houston with 2, and Mike DeVito had the sacks of Osweiler and Manning. Justin Houston had 2. Mike DeVito had 1. Jay Howard had 1, and Derek Johnson. Derek Johnson has been a Bronco killer in the past. Trust me. And Derek Johnson continues his mastery of the Broncos. He's had some big games defensively for them, let me tell you. So they got to get their act together. Chicago Bears are next, and I don't see them winning. I really don't, especially when you have Brock Osweiler going instead of Peyton Manning. So until they prove it to me differently, Michael Bullock is absolutely spot on. The Denver Broncos are number 6 when it comes to the power rankings this week. We go to the top 5 now. I'm going to take this. I said there were some didn't I say there were going to be shakeups? And guess what? I got another one for you. The Cincinnati Bengals are number 5 in the power rankings this week. You want to talk about Denver having a piss poor performance? What about the Cincinnati Bengals against the Houston Texans last Monday night? 10-6. Ugh. But, however, the only good thing is their 8-1 start is tied for the best start in franchise history. I believe it was the 1988 team. That team, of course, went on to the Super Bowl, losing, of course, to the Niners in Super Bowl 23, one of the greatest Super Bowls of all time. 5-star Shakespearean drama. You know the story. Both teams actually had 256 yards apiece. Houston had 256, Cincinnati 256. But here's the thing. The Bengals committed 2 turnovers, and Andy Dalton was sacked 4 times, including J.J. Watt, oh, by the way. Dalton had an interception, no touchdown passes. He had a very subpar game. The running game was atrocious. Only 74 yards rushing as a team. The leading receiver only had 67 yards. That was A.J. Green. He got contained. Nugent had a couple of field goals, but that was pretty much the only bright spot. Like I said, they were sacked 4 times. Whitney Mercilus, John Simon, Christian Covington, and, of course, the heart and soul of that Texan defense, J.J. Watt. And Bullock, I know Bullock fell asleep, but I don't know if you heard me talking about it earlier. I felt J.J. Watt was the reason why the Houston Texans won that game because of his pregame speech. You know how we always flip between Monday Night Football and Raw when we do our Monday night thing, but J.J. Watt gave one of the most passionate pregame speeches I've ever heard him give, and I honestly think that was the reason why. That lit a fire under the Houston Texans, and I felt, with a speech like that, Houston could actually win.
Yeah, and here's another thing. It seems like Cincinnati always seems to, not play well when the lights on bright, like Monday Night Football or another big stage.
The playoffs, yes.
Like the playoffs as well.
Absolutely. You're absolutely spot on there, both. You're right. So we'll see if they can get back on the winning track in a big way against the Arizona Cardinals in a game that we feel could be a possible preview of Super Bowl 50. And I'll tell you what, if it comes down to these 2 in the Super Bowl, I wouldn't mind it. I think it would be a great matchup. Really, it would. So But for right now, the Cincinnati Bengals, they dropped from 2 down to 5. Michael Bullock, I'm guessing you agree with me on this one. Am I right?
Yes, I do agree with you. Since I told you about them not doing good when the lights on bright, whether it's a primetime game or even a playoff game. So my number 5 is the Cincinnati Bengals. So that being said, let's move on to our number 4. And my number 4, well, I think we already know it's already going to come down to either the Minnesota Vikings or the Arizona Cardinals.
You are correct, sir.
The only question is, who do I put it? Who do I put at number 4? I'm gonna have to say, by the slimmest of margins, I gotta go with the Minnesota Vikings as my number 4. I mean, and here's the reason why. I mean, they beat the Oakland Raiders. Even though they are improved, I mean, they're not like the Seattle Seahawks, who are of course back-to-back NFC champions. So basically, of course, getting into the body of work, of course, Minnesota, of course, with another win here, of course, led by Adrian Peterson's running game. And I'll tell you what, I mean, if Minnesota had beaten a really good team, then perhaps I probably put them ahead of Arizona. But because it's the Raiders, even though they are improved, I just feel like I need to see just a smidgen more before I could even put them in the top 3. So yeah, so Minnesota's my number 4. So Florio, I give it to you.
Not often, Michael Bullock, this happens. But with all due respect, I have to disagree with you. I have the Arizona Cardinals as my number 4. The only reason being, you know how Michael Fletcher likes to reward teams for being undefeated in the college football rankings? Well, I reward hot hands, and the Minnesota Vikings are a hot hand right now. And that's why I have to give the Vikes the slight edge over the Cardinals in this go around here. I get it. Arizona.
Either way, you can't go wrong with either one.
No, certainly not. Certainly not. But I tell you what, I mean, it's not an easy decision. It's not a popular decision, I know, but I realize Arizona went into Cincinnati, and or I should say Arizona went into Seattle, and went into and beat the Seattle Seahawks. I get that. I understand that. But the thing is, I don't think Seattle's as good as they once were. I think the Super Bowl hangover has finally caught up to them. I really do. And that's why I have to and the reason being is Minnesota's won 5 in a row. So that's why I have to give the slightest of margins to Minnesota. So the Arizona Cardinals are my number 4. I'm pretty sure this will be our only disagreement when it comes to this installment of the rankings.
Yeah, I think
Arizona's won 3 in a row. They have won 3 in a row. So they're 7-2, leading the NFC West. Ever since that bad loss to Pittsburgh, they've won 3 in a row. You know, they beat Baltimore on the Monday night, went into Cleveland to beat the Browns, and then went into Seattle and won 39-32. A game that I thought was going to be a snoozer at first, but then, I mean, especially after the first 3 quarters, but after the quarter boy, I mean, that's what did it. Yes, Arizona committed 3 turnovers. Arizona committed 3 turnovers, and that's another reason why. I didn't like seeing that. And Carson Palmer was also sacked 3 times. But the offense put up 451 yards, outgaining Seattle 451-343. The defense forced a Seattle turnover, recorded 2 sacks of Russell Wilson. Carson Palmer had 373 yards passing and 3 touchdowns in the win. The running game, Andre Ellington and Chris Johnson. Ellington had 61 and a touchdown. Johnson had 58. Larry Fitzgerald, 130 yards receiving. He's got the fountain of youth. Michael Floyd, 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jermaine Gresham out of Oklahoma, Boomer Sooner. He had a receiving touchdown as well. And 2 sacks for the defense. Deion Buchanan and I don't know who had the other sack, but I know Deion Buchanan had one of the sacks. And Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, also had an interception in that game as well. So that was one of the 2. That was the lone turnover by the Cardinal defense, but it was the 3 turnovers that was a little disconcerting for me. So, but it's the fact that they've won 3 in a row and that Minnesota's won 5 in a row. That's why I have to give Minnesota the slight edge over Arizona. So, number 4 is the Arizona Cardinals. So, we're going to move on to number 3. Obviously, you know who I have at number 3. It's the Minnesota Vikings. I never thought I'd say that. The Minnesota Vikings are in the top 3 in the power rankings this late in the season. Wow, I can't believe I'm actually saying that, but it's true. They've won 5 in a row since that 2-2 start, since that tough luck loss to the Denver Broncos in Week 4. 5-game winning streak. 3 of them on the road, oh, by the way. They beat Kansas City at home. They win at Detroit. They win at Chicago. They barely get by St. Louis at home, and then they go into the black hole and beat the Oakland Raiders to win in Oakland for the first time since 1996. So that's the last time the Vikings had won in Oakland before this year. Defense does not commit any turnovers. The only concern, yes, I know Teddy Bridgewater was sacked 4 times by the Raider defense. I get it, but the defense of the Vikings forced 2 Raider turnovers, sacked Derek Carr twice. Teddy Bridgewater, 14 of 22, 140 yards and a touchdown, no picks, efficient as you can get. Adrian Peterson was the star. 203 yards rushing and a touchdown in the win. The receiving corps didn't do much. Stephon Diggs only had 46 yards to lead the receiving corps. But Rhett Ellison had a receiving touchdown, though, in the win. And a couple of sacks for the defense. Everson Griffin and Danielle Hunter had the sacks of Derek Carr. So 5 in a row for the Minnesota Vikings. And they're hosting their biggest game in nearly 3 years against the very team they played their last big game against, the Green Bay Packers. The only difference is there's no roof this time. No roof. We don't have the Metrodome anymore, Bullock. We're going to be outside in the cold at TCF Bank Stadium on the campus of the University of Minnesota. Temperatures in the 30s, like I mentioned earlier. So there's nothing left for me to say. There's only 2 hotter teams right now than Minnesota. And we're going to get to them in a moment. So the Minnesota Vikings are number 3. Bullock, I already know you disagree. I'm guessing you have Arizona. I'm guessing you have Arizona at 3. Am I right?
Yeah, definitely. So no need to get into that. So I say let's move on to number 2. And I think we all know who's number 2, the Carolina Panthers.
Turn your I can't quite hear you, Bullock. If you could turn up your mic a little bit.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
It's just me.
I think I had to be.
Yeah, I had the volume on because I had this. I also had my computer hooked into my TV, as you know. So yeah,
that's probably
I
the
just had
reason
the
why I
volume.
heard that noise in the background.
All right, yeah, I can hear you now. So I already know who the top 2 are, but just out of our misery, I do number 2.
Carolina Panthers are my number 2. Yeah, Carolina's my number 2 here. So, of course, coming off of a 27 to. Actually, no, I'm wrong here. Yeah. Coming off of a 27-10 win over the Tennessee Titans here, and just pulling up the numbers here. Of course, Cam Newton, 21 of 26, 217 yards and a touchdown. Jonathan Stewart had 91 yards rushing and a touchdown. And on the receiving side, Greg Olsen had 8 catches for 80 yards. And Ed Dixon had the lone touchdown reception in the game, and the defense played well. Kuechly had 8 tackles in the game. Kurt Coleman had 5 tackles and an interception. Charles Tillman had 4 tackles, and so So yeah, the Panthers continue to be the top team in the NFC. So yeah, the Carolina Panthers are my number 2. So Florio, I give it to you.
Carolina Panthers number 2. 27-10 win over the Tennessee Titans at Nissan Stadium in Nashville, holding the Titans to 242 yards of total offense, 11 total first downs. Defense forces 2 turnovers, only got 1 sack. The only downside was Cam Newton was sacked 5 times by the Titan defense, but that's okay. I mean, Newton still had that efficient game like Bullet just mentioned. Stewart almost had 91 yards, like Bullock said, almost had 100 yards. Olsen led the receiving corps with 80 yards. Dixon had the lone touchdown. The 1 sack was by Coney Ely, and Kirk Coleman had an interception of Marcus Mariota. So 9-0, best start since their Super Bowl team of 2003 when they went up against the New England Patriots in that unforgettable Super Bowl 38. 5-star classic Shakespearean drama. All there is to it at Reliant in February of 2004. Fletch and I watched the game together. I had Fletch over my house at that time, and yeah, oh boy, did we have a lot of fun with that. And if he was still here, he probably would have told some great stories about it. So that's all there is to it on that. Number 2, it is the Carolina Panthers. Number 1, one more time, of course. Who else would it be? Much to the delight of one Michael Bullock and Derek Ferreira and all the other Patriot fans I know. Number 1, one more time. Although they almost lost it, they almost coughed it up. But like they always do, they always find a way to win. Number 1, yet again, once more time, your reigning, defending, undisputed Super Bowl champions, the New England Patriots, are number 1 in the power rankings yet again. Even though the Giants outgained them 422 to 406, and even though the Patriots committed 2 turnovers, and Tom Brady was sacked 3 times, the Patriot defense forces a giant turnover. They sack Eli Manning 3 times as well. Tom Brady, 334 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. He throws an interception, a rating of 92.8. The running game was the only downside, only 77 combined yards rushing. LeGarrette Blount led that with 66. But he had a touchdown, though. Solid game for Blount. Rob Gronkowski, 113 yards receiving and a touchdown, including a 76-yard touchdown in that game. Amendola, 79 yards. LaFell had 66. Edelman had 53 before Edelman got hurt. He's out for the remainder of the regular season. Could be back in time for the playoffs. My guess is most likely the divisional playoff because they're probably on track for our first round bye. I wouldn't be surprised. Gostkowski, perfect kicking the ball, 54-yard field goal with a second to go to win it. 3 sacks for the defense. Malcolm Brown, Rob Ninkovich, and Chandler Jones had the sacks of Eli Manning in the win. And Michael Bullock, I don't know what it is about your team, man, but I know what it is. They always find a way to win.
And it's also
Simple as
about another phrase, next man up.
Next man up, and the revenge tour continues. They go back home to Gillette Stadium of Foxborough on Monday Night Football as they host my Buffalo Bills in a game that I wouldn't be surprised if they win. So nothing left to say. Number 1, it is the New England Patriots. So Michael Bullock, put a bow on this one, will you?
Number 1, New England Patriots, the reigning defending Super Bowl champions. So there's really nothing more to say except let's just wrap up this edition of Strictly Sports NFL Friday.
And that's exactly what we're going to do right now. So,
and I'll lead off with the shout-outs.
You lead off with the shout-outs, and I will set up, our never-ending future content, although we got some great future content coming up. This is the second of our 5 consecutive nights of content. So with that said, Bullock, hit us with your shout-outs one time.
All right. We thank you also very much for tuning in for another edition of Strictly Sports NFL Friday. We thank you also very much for tuning in and enjoying the show. Of course, shout outs to all of our great fans out there who support our shows, whether it's this or of course the Wrestling Forum. Of course, shout outs to our super fans, Dee Dee Woodson, Kevin Woodson, Matt Ward, Jason Hixenbaugh. Shout outs to all of our friends from high school days, Al Britterson, Jimmy Alden, Rob Parsons, Eric Carrier, Tom Souza, First Lady of Strictly Sports, Kaisa Butler, the First Lady of the Wrestling Forum, Megan Silva. Of course, to Derek Ferrera, and who continues his success on the sports blog. Michael Fletcher had to leave early, of course, because of work commitments. So, and of course, to our news personalities, starting with Ken Bell from ABC6, Yanni Caracas, Mark Dondero, and Patrick Little from Channel 12, Frank Carpano, Joe Chiata from NBC 10, and of course our personalities from ESPN, starting off with the women, of course, Sarah Walsh, Lindsay Zarniak, Jay McCarthy, Jamie Sire, Lisa Kearney, and of course, when it comes to the males, of course, Robert Flores, Todd Grisham, Jonathan Coachman. Of course, big kudos to Jonathan Coachman for doing all those WWE segments that he does, and I know you must have been watching Sports Center, Florio, because one of your favorites, Charlotte, was interviewed this past week or this week as part of that segment. So I know you must have loved that. So yeah. So, and of course, shout outs to all the great people over at ESPN, and of course, when it comes to Fox Sports and Fox Sports 1, Aaron Andrews, Carissa Thompson, Julie Stewart-Binks, Jill Harrington, Katie Nolan, and of course Molly McGrath, and all the rest of the group over at Fox Sports 1, and of course to former Celtics and current Tampa Bay Rays reporter Emily Austin, and of course our friends from the road shows, starting with the former co-hosts Mary Larson and Megan Mooney. Then, of course, to the three current people, Will Gilbert, Brendan Kirby, and Michaela Johnson. And, of course, shout-outs also, of course, to Stata Sorrell and Lindsay McCormick. So, yeah, that's going to do it for me. So until later tonight for our Survivor Series preview edition of the Wrestling Forum, this is Mike Bullock saying thank you all so very much for tuning in. And, of course, you know the routine. Thumbs up. Talk to you later. Yeah. Throw it up Fortune 4 style. Bye for now. Enjoy your football, your college football Saturday and NFL Sunday, and I'll see you later tonight for our Survivor Series preview edition of the Wrestling Forum. Florio, take it home.
All right, we'll do, Bullock. Special shout out to all of our tremendous fans and viewers out there who continue to make Strictly Sports, whether it's NFL Friday or College Football Thursday, as ridiculously over as they are, along with the Wrestling Forum. We appreciate it as always. We're the best fans in the world. Of course, all of our super fans, Dee Dee Woodson, Kevin Woodson, and the entire Woodson family, along with Matt Ward, Jason Hixenbaugh, Daniel Luttrell from the UK, Megan Silva, and Kaisa Butler, as well as our boys from our high school days, Tommy Souza, Eric Carrier, Jimmy Alden, Alvarez, and Rob Parsons, and certainly last but not least, Derek Ferrera. Continued success on the sports blog. He did a Survivor Series preview blog, like Bullock mentioned that to me when I saw him earlier tonight. So yeah. And then, of course, all of our personalities, Bullock mentioned that. Excuse me. You pretty much covered all the bases there with Channel 6, 10, and 12, as well as our friends from ESPN and Fox Sports and all that. Of course, some personal shout-outs on my end. Of course, Crystal Tooney. Can't forget about her. Olivia Harlan, Kevin Harlan's daughter. I've been loving her body of work, obviously. ACC All Access. You can catch it on Nesson on certain nights. Check your listings on that. Of course, she's also a sideline reporter for ESPN's college football coverage, and she'll be working one of the games tomorrow. She'll be working the North Carolina-Virginia Tech game at high noon tomorrow with Adam Amin and Kelly Stauffer. Cannot wait to see her. I mean, I love her body of work with that. She's also a sideline reporter for the Atlanta Hawks as well. So, I mean, her dad, her legendary father, Kevin Harlan. I mean, we all know his body of work. I mean, in the NFL and college basketball, especially during March Madness, and the NBA on TNT. I mean, his resume speaks for itself. And, I mean, like father, like daughter. Simple as that. So, really loving her body of work. I mean, her dad taught her well. That's all there is to say about that. So, major shout out to Olivia Harlan. And, of course, Stata Sorrell, who I know is on cloud 9 after Arkansas. What Arkansas has been doing lately in the football. I mean, especially going into LSU and winning that game last week. Wow, big things coming for her. And, of course, Lindsey McCormick with her Auburn Tigers. Of course, next week, the Iron Bowl. We're going to get into that on Wednesday night. Looking forward to that, buddy. Oh, yeah, looking forward to that. And then, of course, the Road Show. Megan Mooney, who's in Washington, D.C. with that lifestyle show. Mary Larson with her continued success. And, of course, the three current folks, Will Gilbert, Brendan Kirby, and Michaela Johnson. The Road Show continues to get better and better each and every day, each and every week. Really looking forward to their they're going to have a big Thanksgiving show this next week. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that turns out. I love their holiday shows. They're fun to watch. And that's why they're the best morning show in New England, hands down. And Bullock's been fortunate enough to meet all those folks on quite a few occasions. So hopefully one day I'll get a turn with them. So that's all there is to say about those folks. And then last but certainly not least, my church family at Oasis of Grace Ministries on 464 Silver Spring Street in Providence. You need a church home, check them out. Exit 25 off of Route 95. Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. they do a Bible study for those of you who missed the Wednesday night Bible study. And then the Sunday morning service at 10 a.m. And then Wednesday night, they do a Bible study at 7 p.m. on Wednesday night. Friday nights, sometimes they do something. I mean, of course, 2 weeks ago, I was water baptized 2 weeks ago. Night I'll never forget for the rest of my life. So beautiful that night was. Occasional events on other days of the week. But to me, hands down, they're the best church in Rhode Island. It's just that's just how it is. Pastors Carl and Lucio Russo continuing to do their thing. I mean, I love those folks so much, and they love me in return, and just love that whole family all together. I mean, I love each and every one of them, and they know that. And I look forward to seeing them again this weekend. So, well, yeah, we're gonna have some more fun on Sunday. You better believe that, boy. So that's gonna put an end to this edition of NFL Friday. Of course, like Bullock said, Saturday night tonight. I don't know what time. Any word on that, Bullock, yet?
No. Well, as of right now, I think we should do like around 10:30 for our preview.
Okay. Yeah. 10 or 10:30, whatever works for you. That's more than fine. I'm thinking maybe 10, if that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this is as of now, folks. It could be subject to change. As of right now, 10 p.m. Join myself and Michael Bullock. I don't know if anybody else will be joining us, but I'm guessing it'll be the Yes Movement running the show as usual, as we will preview the 29th annual WWE Survivor Series pay-per-view / network special, the tournament, and at the end of Sunday night, we will have a brand new WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Who do we think it's going to be? Well, you'll have to tune in at 10 p.m. tomorrow night for that. And then Sunday night, 11 o'clock, following Survivor Series, join me, Bullock, and Michael Fletcher on Fletcher's channel, Brace Fan 95, as we recap the Survivor Series. And then back here on the Tone 25 Monday night for the Wrestling Forum, where we'll sort out all the fallout from Survivor Series on Monday Night Raw. And then, of course, next Wednesday night, football feast. And we're going to have a major football feast. All the top 25 college football games and the 3 NFL games. Although the 3 NFL games are actually going to start it off because of chronological order. Because the top 25 games don't start till Friday. So I think we should do the NFL games first and then the college football games after that. So and the college football power rankings as well, if time permitting. But we should be all right. So, so there you go. Very busy future. Very, very, very busy next few days. We hope you'll join us. We're gonna have a lot of fun. I mean, we've had fun these last 2 nights, and you better believe later tonight at 10 o'clock when we do our Survivor Series show, you better believe we're going to have some fun with that. Me especially, because Survivor Series, as you all know, is my favorite event of the year. So that'll do it. So until 10 p.m. tonight for our Survivor Series preview edition of the Wrestling Forum, for Michael Bullock and in spirit, Michael Fletcher and Derek Ferreira, it's Anthony Florio here saying, you know the routine, everybody. Thumbs up. Talk to you later. Yeah, throw it up Fortune Force style. Enjoy your football weekend. Enjoy your college football Saturday, folks. And until 10 p.m. tonight for our Survivor Series edition of the Wrestling Forum, you've been watching Strictly Sports, NFL Friday, right here on the Tone 25 on YouTube.com. Bye for now, my friends. God bless. Be good to each other. And for now, Anthony Florio, so long.